This is the Above Average Podcast, and you are listening because you want an above average life. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, the podcast where we talk to above average people about their above average lives. Now, my guest today has been making huge waves on the comedy circuit for quite a while now, actually. She's also supported the likes of Catherine Ryan and Stuart Francis, two of my favourite comedians. Featured on multiple TV shows such as Roast Battle, Tracy Beaker and Takeshi's Castle, and most recently known for her BBC Radio 4 comedy show, Tom and Lauren Are Going Oot. You've got to get that oot in there. For anyone who's not Geordie, listen, that means going out, going on the town. Please welcome the baby face of comedy, Lauren Pattison, to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so obviously I like to start going back to what made people do what they do now. So take me back to your early days. You studied drama at uni, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. What was the goal with that?
I thought I never wanted to be an actor. I knew I liked acting, but I thought the likelihood of making a career in it just didn't seem something that was in the remit of possibility.
Okay.
So I thought I'll probably be a drama teacher. Loved the idea of being a drama teacher. Thought of all the people who'd ever taught me, and I was like, yeah, it's brilliant. I'd love to be that for somebody. Did a module on facilitation in second year, and I was like, yeah, I'm so good at this. I love this. And I thought, right, I'm going to be really proactive. I'm going to find a voluntary placement in a school, in a drama group, wherever. So I managed to find a placement, being a facilitator in a school, at a drama club, and I hated it.
Oh.
I absolutely hate it. It was the first time suddenly the people in the group weren't people in uni pretending to be kids. They were kids.
They were actually,
They were real kids. And I think it was like, 7 and 8. So what's that, like 11, 12, 13? Arguably, I think the worst age. Wasn't like they were at GCSE level where they're like, yeah, this is what we want to do. It was hot, and nobody respected us because I looked about 7, so they didn't think I was a teacher, and I hated it. And I just thought, I can't do this. And then when you just think everything comes crumbling down around you, I thought, kind of always just anticipated I'd be a drama teacher. I was like, now I don't really know what I want to do, but I'd already been doing stand-up alongside uni. And these two things kind of, the realisation that I never wanted to have to be responsible for somebody else's kids, and starting to get paid for comedy sort of coincided with each other. So I was like, I'm starting to get paid for this. Like, and again, I'd never considered that making a living from comedy would be a possibility. Like, I didn't have comedians in my family. I didn't know it was possible. So I thought, I'm enjoying this, so let's just keep doing it. That classic mentality of being young. This is fun. I'm enjoying this. Let's just keep doing it. And I always say my career in comedy has just snowballed. Like, it's never really like I set out to be a comedian. I started it through my drama group, and it became a hobby, and then I did it as a hobby, and then I started getting paid, and then before I know it, I was like, I guess this is what I do. I guess this is my job.
To be fair, that's quite a common story on the show of people who just accidentally get into doing what they're doing. And I think so many people set out on that strict path. I mean, I was going to be an IT technician, like like one of those guys in like the basement of a building who's like sends all the laptops down.
Turn it off and on again.
Yeah, that was gonna be me, right? And I was totally fine with doing that when I was in college and stuff. And then at first year of college I was. Second year of college I realized I fucking despise computers. I only use them because I have to, out of necessity, not because I want to. But it's interesting how we just fall into like we're different roles.
And I think you're made to think about it too young. The more I think about it, the older I get, I'm like, how are you supposed to, in order to do what you want to do at uni, you have to have picked the right A levels. And you pick your A levels at what, 16 years old? And I'm like, realistically, how many of us know at 16 that we want to do this, which will lead to this, and then we'll do, and if you do, great. And I envy people like that who know from like being 5, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a vet. But I'm like, what if you don't? I think that's so good now. So many people end up retraining, going back into things. I wish it was more accessible to retrain and more affordable. But I just think that's a lot of pressure on a what thing, we don't even trust a 16-year-old to vote. So like, it's like, we trust you to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life, but you can't actually have any influence on the country. It's like, it's mad.
I think it also depends on how you're raised as well. I think my parents just wanted the best for me, and obviously that's unfortunately not the case for everyone's parents. But for my parents, who were like, look, like, this is what's going to make you lots of money, go and do this. And then I was like, I kind of don't want to, guys. I kind of don't want to. And eventually once I started showing promise in other things, they were like, if it makes you happy and you think you can do it, there's no reason why you can't give it a shot.
I think it was always obvious I was going to do something creative. I was good at English as a kid. I was good at writing. I think when I was younger, I thought I'd be a writer or something. And I suppose technically I have become a writer, just a very different kind of writer.
Yeah.
I thought I would maybe write books and stories, and I suppose I do write stories, but I write stories to tell on stage, which is very... It was very clear from being young I would do something creative. So I suppose it has kind of filtered into that.
Yeah. Were you always like the funny one as well, or was that just something that...
Deathly quiet. I was so painfully shy. I would like hide behind my parents' legs. Very, very shy. Very, very introverted. But loved writing. And then I got to secondary school and started drama. Started a drama group. I think partly for a bit of confidence, and also partly I kind of knew I liked it. But I think like a lot of working class kids, we hadn't had the opportunity to try it. It's not you hear about these private schools where they're doing bloody cello lessons as part of the curriculum, and we've got a lacrosse, and they're presented with all these opportunities from such a young age, and so you don't really get that like when you don't have that kind of sort of life. So it wasn't like drama groups or anything that had ever been plonked in front of us. But I sort of knew deep down, I was like, I want to do this. I want to have a go. I loved going to the panto. I loved all this kind of stuff. And when I started drama is when I discovered I was funny. And I don't think it fully sort of joined the dots in my head to being a comedian, because I wasn't thinking that at that age. But when I found my confidence, I found my voice, and my voice was funny. But then at school, I was the quiet, nerdy one, like top set, kept our head down sort of thing. But I was very funny and I was very sarcastic. But at the age where that isn't a valuable commodity, if you know what I mean. So
it can get you in trouble, yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes with people, so it wasn't like I was the class clown. Everybody loved the class clown, but I was quite dry, quite witty, quite sarky occasionally, and I'd come out with stuff every now and then. You could see people looking, and when you see the confusion of being like, I don't get that, I don't understand that. But then amongst my friends, I was always trying to make them laugh, like in my friendship groups.
Yeah.
And then sort of beyond that, I would sort of keep myself to myself, but every now and then I'd come out with something. You could see people being like, that just come from her. Like, she just say that.
You're surprised. You like surprise people. Yeah, I like that.
And then when I got to uni, I think that's when I really blossomed, and I wouldn't necessarily say I made myself the centre of attention. I still, was a bit anxious and everything, but I was much more comfortable using humour and knowing what that meant for me. And also other people were like, oh yeah, that's cool to be funny, whereas in secondary school it wasn't cool to be, unless you were the class clown, and that kind of, it wasn't cool to be funny. But when I went to uni and got to that kind of age, I found people gravitated towards us because of my person. They were like, oh, she's fun, we want to hang around her. Whereas I think at secondary school it'd been like, I don't get it, like, we just want to sit and be pretty and hope someone fancies us.
That's a very specific person you have in mind when you're doing that voice. I'm just picturing there was a girl sat behind me in maths, and that was her face. It was like the bottom jaw forward. It was like,
are you trying to be funny or something? Yeah, that's literally what I'm doing. And I think, like I say, among my group of friends when I was sort of younger, I loved making them laugh and I loved being funny, but I saw it almost as something to be not embarrassed about, but not something to put on display around anybody else, because you are made at secondary school, unless you were pretty or sporty, it didn't matter, did it? Nobody wanted to know you. So it was almost like, I don't want to draw attention to myself. I don't want to be teased for this, because nobody seems to understand bloody humour at this age. But then once I got a bit older, I was like, oh, how nice is it to just love making your mates laugh. I love being a bit daft sometimes, and if somebody looks at you like you're being stupid, being like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not hurting anybody. Like, this is fine. Oh, I've embarrassed myself. Okay, no problem. Like,
it once you've left the sort of year 11 and you go the years past, that's when you find people that you really click with.
Oh, massively.
So when did you do your, because you had a walk-on role in Tracy Beaker.
I did,
obviously you said you didn't want to go, the acting thing kind of didn't work out for you, but how did that part come about? What age were you then?
So I loved acting, and even still now I'm like, any acting opportunities that come up, I do them. But I knew I could because fair play to anybody who pursues simply being an actor, because bloody hell, that is hard. It is so hard. It requires so much determination, everything. Whereas me, I'm like, I'll have something else that I pursue, and if any acting things come up, great, I'll do them. Nice way to be. And it was my first year of university, so when I was in sixth form, I was an extra on Wolf Blood, which was a CBBC show where she turned into a wolf. Clues in the title. And I did like 6 months of extras work on that or something, put the money aside for starting uni. I would do my A-level coursework like in the little green room between takes. Nice. And it was fun. Like at that age, I was like, this is something different. This is something cool. And then through that sort of extras agency, I got a phone call just as I was starting uni, and they were like, "Do you want to play a mugger as a walk-on part in Tracy Beaker?" And then like, you've got extras or like supporting artists, as sometimes they like to be called. I'm a supporting artist, but then like a walk-on part, like you have a specific. You're not just an extra. You're an M&S extra. Like you got purpose, and I think uni wouldn't give us the time off. It was very near the start of uni, and they wouldn't give us the day off for it. And I was like, I think it was like 250 quid or something. And then you're like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. 250 quid's a lot.
Exactly. I was a student. I was like, that is my month of night out.
That means I can eat this month.
Exactly. This was 2012 as well. Think how many drinks you could have got for 250 quid in 2012.
Paralytic.
Like, oh my God. So I said yes. And then I remember when I did Wolf Blood, obviously it was a lot of like sitting around, a lot of long hours, and I hadn't been told anything about a costume or anything. So I thought, right, I'll go in something quite casual, something comfy like this. And then I'm assuming they're obviously going to like have something for us or whatever. I remember turning up in like my joggies and my hoodie because I didn't know how long I was going to be sitting around all of this. And I turned up and the wardrobe person or whoever went, "Oh, good, you've come dressed." And I sat there and I thought, or stood there and I thought, I haven't come dressed, but it's good to know that my day-to-day style is mugger. That is very reassuring.
Flattering.
So obviously I was just like, yeah, of course I have, yes. I didn't even get changed. I just, normal clothes, sorted my hair and stuff. Thankfully that my hair clearly wasn't mugger chic. That did have to be changed. And all I did for a morning, just up from Gosforth High Street, was run and take some handbags and shopping bags off a girl as a mugger. And that, I think it was the very opening scene of one of the episodes.
Nice.
And that was my claim to fame.
I love it. I have yet to be in a TV show or anything like that. Like I've always like admired people that do it, but I'm also like, I know from working with cameras and stuff, I'm like, I don't want to fuck anything up in this scene. You know what I mean? I'm like, I would feel horrendous if I had to redo something. I got my first sort
of like proper acting job last year, which was with Jack Robertson from Up Here. So he wrote a thing called Where It Ends, and I got cast in it. So that was the first acting job I'd done where I had like a proper part. I wasn't just mugger. Like I had a name and I had lines, and I was like, oh my God, amazing. Like this is exciting. This is the kind of thing I have always wanted to do, but the opportunity's just never arisen. And the first day of filming was so full on, I was shattered. I was like, when you take a toddler to the park and then when they come home that day, they're like that. I was so tired and I had to be up at 5 a.m. the next day to do it all again. But I was so excited. I thought, this is amazing. And I got home, I washed my hair, and I must have fell asleep in bed, literally like this. And I woke up in the morning and I couldn't move my neck. I was like this, and I thought, oh my God, I've obviously fallen asleep funny, and I've done something in my neck, and I was literally like this, and all I could think was, how can you act when you cannot move I couldn't turn my head. The only way I could turn my head was if I did this.
like old school 80s like Batman, like just
that.
Like full body movements,
exactly. And I was so embarrassed, and I thought, I've waited so long for an acting thing to come up, and something's come up, and now I can't move my neck. And I was like, oh my God. So the first scene that we filmed all day, I was trying so hard, and like I could sort of do that, but every time I did, I cannot tell you the immense pain that shot through my body. And obviously you have to do it again and again in different shots and this, and I'm just thinking, I feel physically sick, but I didn't want to say anything. I was embarrassed, and then you can see like in my eyes how much I'm really like struggling. And then we got to the end of the scene, and I thought, I'm actually going to be sick. And I went, right, we just need to do like the behind the scenes photos, like the stills that they take, and the picture that got used to sort of like advertise the program, all of this. I swear to God, I am green, and I'm like this, like proper, because I'd held it together for this whole scene. And then they were like, right, photos, and I'm like, oh my God. And I don't think it's one of those things, if you didn't know, you probably couldn't tell, but I can tell. I know what I look like when I'm like and I'm just like this, all my determination. And then I remember running to the toilet, throwing up, realising I had the microphone on, so I'd gone to all this length to hide the fact that I couldn't move my neck. And then all the guys in the sound were probably like, is she on a whitey? Like, what? And I came out and everyone was like, are you okay? And I went, I've done something in my neck. I went, I'm so sorry. And they were like, oh, you should say we could get you a heat pack, we'll sort you out. And I was like,
God, you could have a full massage.
I could have had a lovely little heat pack on all morning. But that was a real, nobody teaches you in a Northumbria drama course how to act without moving your head when you need to.
Yeah, unless you're Michael Keaton in like Batman.
Exactly.
Yeah, amazing. So your first comedy gig that you did, I had it as the Chillingham Arms.
It was.
Was it Heaton? Is that right?
Yeah, Heaton.
So that's, for anyone that doesn't know, is a hell of a place to do a first comedy gig. So how did you get that gig? Yeah. And how did it go?
So I'd done stand-up. So I started stand-up through my youth theatre. I went to the Youth Theatre Live Theatre. So we'd done a couple of gigs there, but I don't really think they can count as gigs. You know, they were for the friends and family of people, and, you know, you'd put on little shows. So it wasn't like a proper gig. Mm-hmm. But then I started to obviously realise I enjoyed it, wanted to do more of it. And I thought, I've got no idea how to get a gig. I don't know where the gigs are. Yeah. The Stand Comedy Club, I don't think it even opened at this point. It didn't. I think that opened September, October 2012, and this is like May 2012. Yeah. And I thought, I don't know what to do. And I'm still in A-level year at this point, end of A-level year. I'd done a project for one of my A-levels about stand-up in the UK and loads of different stand-ups. And for a lot of them, I spoke about like the competitions that they did. So I thought, competitions, that seems to be a way when you're starting stand-up, you do competitions. Yeah. So one of the competitions that had come up and loads of the comedians who I'd written about was So You Think You're Funny. So I googled So You Think You're Funny. And it was like, So You Think You're Funny is a competition for anyone aged 18 or over. And I was like, I'm 18 now. I've turned 18, amazing, tick. Who is in their first year of comedy, can't have been performing longer than a year. And I was like, I've technically done no gigs, amazing. And yeah, you couldn't have been performing more than a year. And I think you couldn't have done more than 15 gigs. So there was like a very small limit on how many gigs you could have done. And I was like, I've done none, technically. This is amazing. So I signed up for this competition, not realising that most people, well, nearly everybody who normally would enter a comedy competition has done some gigs.
Right, okay.
Most people do not enter a comedy competition who have never done a gig, or at least not done a gig in front of adults rather than mummies and daddies of children at the youth
people who are going to applaud no matter what. Yeah,
but I was just like, I wasn't entering it with the view of being like, I am entering this competition to see how far I can get through the competition. I was entering it going, I need a gig, and this is a gig in Newcastle, so I need the stage time. I'll do this gig, and maybe somebody there can tell me where other gigs are. So that was my logic.
It's good logic, yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing it to get through the competition. I'm doing it for a gig. I'm doing it for the stage time. So it was at the Chillingham Arms. Lost Voice Guy was on that night.
Brilliant.
I remember Lost Voice Guy being there. I think.
Was he still Pot Speaking Spell back then, or was that just by himself?
This was by himself. But I was saying, I think we are the only two from that heat who are still going. And I, like, from what I can remember, I enjoyed it. Like, I was 18, so don't you think, as anxious as I was, generally, you've also got that naivety around you, haven't you? Where I didn't know that wasn't the done thing to do, and I didn't know all of this. I just did it and enjoyed it for what I was doing it for, and kind of forgot about it. And I thought, right, I guess I'll have to, nobody could really tell us where to get any other gigs. And I was like, I guess I'll just have to keep looking, doing a bit of Googling. And then I went to Tea in the Park Festival a couple of months later in the July, and I was setting up my tent and the phone rang, and it was the organiser of the competition. She was like, oh, you've got through to the next round. And I went, oh, nice. That's okay, no thank you. And she was like, what? And I went, oh, no, like I didn't do it to get through or anything. I did it like just, and she went, well, you're through. And then that's when it sort of started to click, and I was like, oh, wait, so that's another gig. I've got another gig. So then I think around this time, the Stand must have opened. Maybe the Stand opened a little bit the year before or something. Because once I realised I got through, I was like, right, well, I'm going to need to practice. So I got in touch with the Stand, and I was like, hello, my name is Lauren, and I am 18, and I have entered So You Think You're Funny on my first gig, and I have got through, and I am scared. Like, what do I do? And they fit us on a red roll, which again, I think they must have looked at that email and been like, who is this girl? Yeah. This is wild, because obviously the wait list for Red Raw is mad big. Yeah. Or I just hit lucky and there was a space.
Red Raw is probably one of my favourite events in the Stand to go to.
It is so good.
But it's one of those ones where you go and you know that it's either going to be really fucking good, or you're going to be like, hiding your face a little bit.
You will see the best, you will see the worst, you'll see the weirdest. So I did this gig at Red Raw, loved it, absolutely loved it. And then I think I managed to get a gig from somebody who I'd met at, I don't think it's even there anymore, Mimos, or is it still there?
I think it just.
Yeah, just clinging on. Someone was putting on a gig there, so I got a gig there, and then again, someone made a beeline for us. And I was like, you that girl who's done like a couple of gigs and is like meant to be like really good or something? And I was like, I don't know, sounds like it could be me.
Meant to be really good now, something.
And once I got in with the Stand, I owe pretty much everything really to the Stand. Because when I got in for that Red Raw, they sort of gave us another one, and then they gave us another one, and then they gave me my first like paid spots. They gave me my first spots on a weekend, all this sort of thing. And then they gave me like my first spots outside of Newcastle and like Glasgow and Edinburgh. But my first gig all came about purely just from wanting a bit of stage time, entering it. And now I look back and I'm like, you entered a nationwide comedy competition. Most people will bend the rules. They'll, like, if a competition says, oh, you can only have been gigging 3 years, they'll have been gigging 13 years, but they'll go, we'll just rub out the one and no one will know.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing in comedy that people bend, and I'm not saying I agree with it because I don't, that they'll bend the rules of competitions so that they're eligible for new act competitions, but they're more experienced, which means they're better, which means they're more likely to get through. Yeah. I did it the total bloody opposite. I was like, I've been going 0 gigs, I'll just have a go. Whereas with that competition, what most people would do is wait till they've been going a year and then enter it. I just saw, oh, well, as long as you've been going less than... I'd been going 0 days. I should have really, in the benefit of hindsight, gigged for a year and done that competition. But I just saw it and went, oh, I want the gig. I want the stage time. But I'm so grateful I did that, because from getting through to the next round for that, it pushed us to look for other gigs, which got us in with the stand. And then once I was in with the stand, that just other doors started opening. And I remember, I think it was before I did my first paid gig at the stand, but somebody must have said, to us, one of the acts I was on with or something, mentioned something about like getting paid for this. And I was like, what? And they were like, you could get paid for this, you know, like, you are good. I don't think you understand, you are good. I said, at the time I'm 18, 19 years old. I didn't understand the club circuit. I knew there was comedy that happened in the theatre, you know, when comedians went on tour.
Yeah.
I knew there was comedy on TV, and that was those comedians who were going on tour. I hadn't realised, because this was my first time of going to comedy clubs, that there was this whole other circuit of comedians who performed in the clubs, and they were the ones before they go on the TV sort of thing. So I hadn't, again, realised that this was a world that existed. And even when I did realise it was a world that existed, I didn't know that you got paid for it. I didn't understand about the progression and all of this kind of thing. Because as soon as somebody said was, you could get paid for this, I was like, what? I could do, like, I could do this as in for like money and stuff. And people were like, yeah, like, it could literally be your career. And that was within the first year of me doing stand-up, somebody was like, you are very good and you could make a career out of this.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, and that's after a year of just sort of, in my first year, I probably only did about 5 or 6 gigs. I was first year of uni. I was, you know, adjusting all of that. I was working in a shop to be able to pay for uni.
Yeah.
And then once I got into my second year of uni and I was in a bit more of a rhythm with life, I was like, right, well, go on then. Let's get on the megabus and go to Leeds and do this gig in Leeds and see what that leads to. And that club is a club that has gigs on a weekend, so they must pay. So how do I get onto those gigs? Oh, there's their new act night. I'll do this, so I get this. And I spent my student loan on megabuses and EasyJet hotels with no windows, so I could go and do stand-up. And by the time I'd graduated, when I was 21, I was already like a semi-pro comedian. Like, I was doing well. Like,
one thing, and I'm probably gonna say this again later, but one thing I admired about looking through everything that you've done was just simply how much that you've done. And hearing this thought process now, I'm like, oh, like it's the mindset that I think people wish they had, really, when it comes to anything they want to do.
And I think there's a lot of people who are like, I want it and I want it now. And of course I get that. Of course, no, if there was a cheat code to skip all that stuff, of course everybody would take it. But I've always been, no, I'll put the work in and I will graft and I will do what it takes. If you're telling me I have to do this gig in order to do that gig, then yeah, I'll do this gig to do that gig. But there's some people who are going, no, but I don't want to do that gig, I do that gig. If I'm already doing this gig, why would I do that gig to do that gig? And I'm like, just do it.
Yeah, you were kind of reverse engineering success almost. You're like, well, how do I get there? Well, this dot and this dot. You were like connecting as you went.
I was very good at being like, I don't think I'm above. It's that fine line between not thinking you're above anything. So if you haven't done a certain trial for a promoter and they require a trial, cool, okay, you have to do that trial, even if you're doing paid spots elsewhere, you know what I mean? Even if you're in with other clubs, if you're not in with him and he hasn't seen you, yeah, cool, go do a trial for him. But then same different side of the same coin, it's about knowing your worth. So fair enough, if you are headlining this club, but Billy at this club still won't give you a paid spot and is asking you to come and gig for free, then of course you say no, because you're like, no, because I'm gigging at this level.
Yeah.
Here. But
you don't want to undersell yourself,
if you're just climbing in the door of other places and somebody still won't open that door, yeah, I would go and gig for free. But obviously once I got to the point where I was like, no, I'm playing professionally here.
Yeah, I'm a respected
comedian. If you don't want me, I'm not going to come and gig for free for you, sort of thing. But I was very established before I got to that point. Like, there was plenty of clubs plenty of places who were giving us clubs and paid work, and I was just getting my foot in the door, and then someone would be like, oh, can you come and do like a unpaid trial out spot? While it's frustrating, I'd be like, yeah, I will. I'll come and do one. And if you don't like me after that one, I'll probably not do another, but I will do it, and I will show you that I should be getting paid. I should be getting paid.
Yeah.
Like, pay your dues, do your time, put the graft in. Yeah.
And that's why
I think it's made us quite a well-rounded comedian as well, because I did the gigs in pubs, I did the gigs in back rooms, I didn't just gig in lovely, shiny, proper comedy clubs. I gigged everywhere. I gigged in cupboards. Like, I absolutely put the time in, and I think it made us quite rounded, very much so, because by the time I was at the point where I was being paid everywhere, I was like, there's not a single gig I haven't done.
well, I've had a couple of comedians on. You're the third comedian I've had on the show, and I might just turn the show into a comedian show at this point, but I search them and I search you, and the difference in what comes up for you in terms of, like, I went onto YouTube and typed your name in, and it's just boom, 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 but like thousands and thousands of you. I don't know whether you check yourself on YouTube, like, no, but I'm like, there's another stand-up routine, there's another one, there's another one. So it was like the difference between, obviously I'm not shitting on them at all, I'm just saying what I found from you was just like, you just kept going. There was nothing that really stopped you.
And obviously I was very fortunate to be young. So I think if I was, say, starting stand-up now, it would be different. I've got a mortgage, I've got a partner, I've got a dog. I probably couldn't just be like, hey, so I'm actually going to go to Leeds tonight for no money. Can you look after the dog? By the way, I'm not going to be here, all of this. But I was at uni, I was studying, so I had time. And what I did was I worked. So I did work. I worked right through university, all different jobs. But the jobs paid the uni. So the jobs paid for my drinking, paid for my food, it paid for my nights out, it paid for my books for my courses, it paid for my rent. I love how I put rent last. Yeah,
I like how you put drinking first.
Exactly. All
drinking,
the things,
then food. Yeah.
All the things that I needed at university, my day job paid that. And then my student loan obviously topped up what I needed. Well, in fact, my student loan paid my accommodation in first year, but what was left of it went on comedy. And then by the time I was in second year, my student loan was paying a little bit of my uni life, but my job was paying most of it. And then I would try and use the student loan to be able to afford to get the bus here or to get the train here, kind of thing. And then by third year, it was like, you know, the amount was sort of changing a little bit until eventually, like, anything I sort of earned from comedy paid for comedy with the student loan and all of this. And because I don't want people to think just like, I should just use the student loan to dick about. It's like, I worked as well, but I made sure that student loan was like a little buffer where I could be like, I've been offered this gig in Barnsley. I can't afford to get to Barnsley, but I've got 500 quid in my student loan left. So okay, we'll use a little bit of this to go. And I always made sure I had this like emergency fund from my student loan to be able to use towards comedy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, I love that. So obviously from these small stages in these little comedy clubs, you then went on sort of, I mean, you've done New Zealand and Australia and stuff. So obviously being on stage is scary in itself. It's nerve-wracking. So how did that compare from the small stage to these larger arenas almost?
It was exciting. So I did like my debut show in Edinburgh, and then kind of got a lot of career opportunities off the back of that. And as well, I always wanted to go travelling. I wanted to do the whole going backpacking, going on girls' holidays, but I sacrificed it all for stand-up. Like, the Edinburgh Fringe happens, I wanted to do Camp America. Camp America happens over the summer. What also happens in the summer? The Edinburgh Fringe. And I always prioritised that. I always did. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but ultimately it's got us to where I am. So I'm like, I can't really say either way. Like, sometimes you think, I wish I'd done more of that, but I'm like, well, would I be doing this if it wasn't for that? So every summer I went to like the Fringe in some capacity, the free Fringe when I was first starting all of this. I sacrificed the girls' holidays, I sacrificed the Camp Americas and the travelling, and then suddenly I did really well at the Edinburgh Fringe. I got nominated for Best Newcomer, and I got offered to go to Australia. I got offered to go to New Zealand. I got offered to go to India. I got offered to go to Istanbul. I got offered to go to Canada. And suddenly I was like, I have played the long game and it's paid off. Because now not only am I getting to go to all these places that I would have loved to go travelling, but someone's paying for me to go.
Yeah, that's the best bit. That's the best bit.
Someone is paying for me to go. And someone was once a bit snotty with us, and they're like, yeah, but you didn't properly go travelling. You didn't get the proper backpacker experience. And I'm like, no, technically I didn't. I was working, but I still got to go to these countries and explore bits of these countries and have a lovely time.
Yeah.
And not have to pay £2,000 for a flight to Australia. Like, sick, amazing. But it was always nerve-wracking. But I found it... I think I was too excited to get too, like, with it. And as well, the bigger the rooms are, the more you can't really see anybody as well.
Yeah, the lights. Yeah. It's just like, you see the first row or two, and then it's just black.
So I'm like, put me on like a stage in a 3,000 capacity theatre, and while it's nerve-wracking walking out, you can't really see anyone, so you kind of lose track of the size of the space you're in. And once the laughs start coming, you're like, oh, sick. Arguably, I think it's worse when you're in a room with like 20 people. You can see all 20 of them, and they're not really laughing, and you're like, oh, this is bad. But I did the Sydney Opera House, and I didn't find out about it until very soon before I was doing it. And I was terrified. I was so terrified. And I remember I'd never even understand stupid because I'd never been to Australia. I'd never seen the Sydney Opera House. It's not like I was like, oh, this is a place. I remember being stood outside it, and I was like, that's like the actual... Like, I've seen that on telly. That's mad. I'm a little lass from Kenton, like, and I'm stood in front of the Sydney Opera House. Someone's flown me out here. Like, someone's paying for my accommodation. This is amazing. I remember going in through, like, the back entrance of the Sydney Opera House and all of this. And there was, like, a little buffet table with, like, cheese and ham. So I scrammed all of that. I was like, right, you can take the lass out of Newcastle. But if you're giving her something free, she's getting her money's worth. But, like, all the sort of... Obviously, all the Aussie comedians all knew each other, and then I was one of the newer British comedians out there, so all the more established British comedians know each other, so I kind of then realised I had no one to talk to, and I was too anxious to just go and attach myself to somebody, and then suddenly you feel the walls closing in because you think, I shouldn't be here. I don't belong here. Look at all the Aussie comedians talking to the other Aussie comedians. Look at all the British comedians talking to the Aussie comedians they've met because they've been here before, and talking to the other British comedians who they've done this TV job or that TV job with. And I was like, I am the outsider. I am the new one. Oh, God, I shouldn't be here. Of course, things like this don't happen to me. But, and I could feel all that self-doubt came in. And I thought, no. So I took my glass of wine. I took my cheese and ham. I went to the toilet, and I sat in the toilet. And I thought, right, now you're on your own. So that's fine. Like, you're meant to be on your own. You know, in there, I felt alone. But in here, I was meant to be alone. No one could be in the toilet with us. So I sat, and I just had my wine. I had my cheese and nibbles. And then I went back through, and because you get called to the side of the stage, sort of like in groups as when you're on. And I just sat at the side of the stage, and I thought, I'm just gonna focus on me. On me. And I went out, and I smashed it. I absolutely smashed it. I had a lovely time, and I came off. And I remember then, after I came off, I felt like I could talk to people because I felt I'd proved myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was probably the one who a lot of you didn't know, but you fucking know me now, don't you?
Yeah.
You know me now.
Yeah,
you've seen, and I know as well, if I'd gone up and spoke to anybody before, I'm sure they would have, but you feel that imposter syndrome. You're like, I was 24, I was still very young and sort of new and just breaking through in that. And I remember just literally being like, okay, if being by yourself here is making you feel anxious and you feel like you can't go talk to somebody, then you just go sit by yourself, and you go sit by yourself somewhere private, out of the way.
Yeah.
And then I went and did the gig, and once I did the gig, I felt like I could talk to people because I thought, well, no one can say they don't know who I am because they've all
they just
seen
watch
me
you smash it. Yeah, exactly.
there, yeah. But I was terrified before I went on. I remember I can't even remember a single thing that I said on stage. I can't remember what my set was. It was just full, like, blinkers on. You go out, you hit the beats, you enjoy it. And I came off and I was like, I just didn't stand up at Sydney Opera House. That's wild.
Nice.
That's mad.
I remember, in contrast to like my experience in public speaking and stuff, obviously you can see everybody in the crowd because it's not just like a dark room. And I remember my anxiousness, my nerves beforehand, I kind of did a little bit different to you in terms of like, I had to find this almost arrogance because obviously I've felt the same, like, I shouldn't be here. These speakers are like, the headliner's done like, gets paid $9,000, but he's doing this one for free, you know. And here's me, like, I've done two, you know. So I had to kind of find this inner arrogance almost, and like try not to let it obviously come across when I'm speaking. But I was kind of like, had to say, you know what, fuck this, and you know, like bravado almost. But that's kind of how I suppose I got over that sort of thing as well.
Because I have the bravado in private more weirdly. So I'm a very anxious person. I really struggle with the imposter syndrome. So put me in a room with people, and I'll be like, oh God, I shouldn't be here, this and that. But if it's just like me and my boyfriend, I sort of project in a way that obviously is nerves, but probably comes out more as that bravado. And I go, but I am class, aren't I? Like, I am really good at what I do. And it's like, with him, I'm comfortable to speak like that. But it is, you will see comedians who are like that more in public. They'll be like, yeah, well, I'm like, yeah, I'm not nervous. I'm fine. I'm great. Yeah. I'm really good at this. Why wouldn't I be? And I don't have the confidence to have that bravado in public. But just me and him, I'm like, I'm fucking class. Like, of course I'm going to smash it. And obviously I don't believe that inwardly. I'm like, oh my god, but it's all projected.
It helps,
bravado.
doesn't it? It just helps.
And then you put us in a group of people and I'm like, I'm just a piece of shit. Like, I don't know why I'm here. And then I'll go back with my boyfriend. I'm like, I'm not a piece of shit. I'm so good. And like, the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think people love that self-deprecating humor the most. But if you come out like a, Conor McGregor swagger, people are like, fuck this person,
This?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But I read one of your posts that you said you performed to the Edinburgh Fringe for no people.
For no people.
How did that go down?
So this was and I wish this had happened now. Because the last couple of years, it's a classic recurring joke in Edinburgh that on one of the first days, someone performs to no people, they'll do a tweet about it, and it goes viral, and then they get the newspapers coming in. Bloody, I was 8 years ahead of this trend. Pattison had nobody coming in 2016, and it was, so the way it works when you're stand-up is obviously you do 5-minute set, you do 10-minute set, you do 15.
Yeah.
And the newer acts on the bill, so if you go see a weekend comedy club, the person doing the 10 spot, that is likely someone doing a tryout spot. They're likely not being paid or being paid very little. And that's to show that they are maybe ready for a higher spot. And then you'll have like someone doing the opening. They might do about 20 minutes. Your headliner will do maybe like 25, all of this. So the full length spots for a pro on a lineup are sort of 20 to 25 minutes. And then from there, it would be doing your own show, doing an hour, whatever.
Right.
But what you can do before you do an hour is do a work in progress of about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, because once it hits 50, it's eligible to be included in the awards. So that's why people who, before their debut, they'll do a 45 minute show, because then it's not eligible to be included in that. That's the way they get around it. So I decided, I was doing 20s places, all of this. I wasn't headlining, but I was doing all the clubs and stuff in that sort of 15 to 20 spot. So I was established in this. So I thought, right, well, the next step is to build up to doing your hour, but I don't feel quite ready to tackle an hour as well. It's like, a financial investment. So let's see if we can kind of do, because if you can do 45, you can do an hour. So I was like, let's see if we can do an hour before we do an hour. So I did this work in progress in Edinburgh in a venue called the Counting House. And I was in a room called the Attic, which was way, way, way up at the top of the stairs. Teeny. The room was probably the size of this table, maybe 20 seats, and it was the temperature of the sun. And the first couple of days in Edinburgh are always like quiet, because obviously people are just arriving, all of this. So the first day I had maybe the people who handed my flyers out, a couple of friends came. There was a handful of people in the audience. That's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was not expecting to sell out every day, but I thought I'll probably have somewhere between 3 and 10 people a day, and that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So on the first day when I had people, I was like, amazing, cool. The second day, nobody. And I was like, oh no. My flyers were like, really sorry, there's just like nobody around. Like the streets are empty, and the people who are flying have already got shows. And I was like, that's like, you've tried.
Yeah.
It was the first day I'd ever paid anybody else to hand my flyers out. And I was like, cool, thank you. So I would have been 22. And I remember thinking, I've taken a month off work. Like, well, I think I'd actually let what I always used to do, because I worked in hospitality, was I would quit a job for, like, to go to Edinburgh and then just get a different job in a different restaurant when I came back, sort of thing. I always worked those kind of, like, sort of disposable jobs. Yeah. So I'd left my job it must have been in the pub for that time, 2016? Oh, I can't remember, probably. Wherever I was working, I'd left. Or was it the restaurant? I can't even remember. It might have been. That was around the time I was moving to London, I think. So I must have left the job in the restaurant. I was gearing up to move to London and get a day job, like when I got to London, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I could have been working. Like, I could have been making money. I've taken time off work to be here. I'd paid for the room. I think the room was about 1,500 quid. I paid for my accommodation. Back in the day when Edinburgh accommodation was cheaper than it is now. And I think my accommodation was about 700 quid. So you're talking, you've dropped $2,000 on the two things you can't get out of having, which is accommodation and a venue to perform in, sort of thing. I know you can do free fringe and get a venue for free, but I'd done like a system where people could pay do the free fringe and come and pay what they want, or they could book like a ticket in advance. It was like a little hybrid thing, and it was the only venue I'd been offered. I tried to go on the free fringe and nobody had taken it, so I was like, right, if I want to go to the fringe, my only option is to do this room. And I thought, cool, I'll do it. But we're talking you've dropped $2,000 before you've even got there.
Damn.
And you're not working, you're not working while you are working because you're doing stand-up, but you're not being paid by the hour
that kind of
thing.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed money. So I was like, right, okay, I'm a working class girly. I thought, I have paid for this room, regardless of whether people come or not. It's day 2. I'm still getting to know my show. I thought, I'll just do it. I'll just practice. I'm paying to use this room. They don't give me a refund if nobody comes for the day.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, I'll just practice. So I stood, and I had like the fan blowing because it was so hot. And I'm just running through the show, blah, 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 blah. And then the tech guy for the building came in and went, you do know no one's here? And I went, yeah, I do. And he went, wow. Okay, and he probably thought I was having a breakdown on day 2.
I like how he did. Why didn't you just think you were practicing?
Exactly. He was
That's
like,
so weird.
You do know this is empty? And I was like, fully aware, my friend.
Should turn around and be like, no, really?
You can't see them? I can see them.
You should have just played the crazy
card. Yeah. And then I did a couple of funny videos. Like, I sort of did a selfie, and I was like, hey guys, welcome to day 2 of the Edinburgh Fringe. I am absolutely crushing it in front of a sold out room. Just look at how much this room is enjoying it. And then I spun round, obviously. Again, take the piss out of yourself.
Yeah, I thought, do it.
I could be sad about this. Of course I could, but being sad isn't going to change anything. So I thought, let's just find a way to laugh at it. Let's just find a way to make a joke out of it. Let's find a way to not be too upset about it. I thought, let's just laugh. And then I played Akon, Lonely, and just slowly panned the camera around. And I tweeted those videos out and put them on Facebook. And I was like, if you could tell anyone to come. And then I think people are more likely to engage with that, rather than going, oh, I'm so sad that no, but I was like, oh, look at this, what a sick that, no one's here, good. And then people sort of did start coming, and the room was so hot, I would go, bear in mind, this is I am not making money in this room. This is a 20-seater room. Most people aren't buying a ticket in advance. They're doing the free fringe kind of thing. So it's not like a money spinner at all. But the room was so hot that I was walking to the farm foods before the show. I was buying 2 boxes of ice lollies, and when people came in, I was giving them an ice lolly because the room was that hot. And I was like, I want you to have a nice time.
Yeah.
And I know if you're hot, you're not going to have I'm not very business savvy. Let's just... That is a skill I've had to try and learn over the years. But I was just paying for ice lollies for everyone. But then I thought as well, people will go and tell their mates, oh, you should go see this girl. She's in a room that's proper sweating, but she gives you a little ice lolly at the start. And over the month, the room, there was some days it was full. There was a couple of days I did sell out in advance on tickets kind of thing. And I was like, this is amazing. But on the whole, it was a mixed bag of people, and some days there was 3 people, some days there was 20, some days, like I say, it would sell out in advance and I'd be like, woo, and then other days I would have sold 1 ticket and people all come in. But it was I enjoyed it. I thought, well, I'm hungry for it. So I was like, I'm definitely going to do that debut next year, but I'm going to go in a proper venue. I know it's going to cost money, but I'm going to work damn hard. That must have been the year of the restaurant. So I think I made about £1,000 from that Edinburgh show. By the time you deduct everything, I quite clearly lost money, but I didn't see it as that. I was like, right, I've saved up for all the other bits. This is what I've made at the end. So I put that straight down for accommodation for the following year. So I was like, right, all that work this year has paid the accommodation for next year. And then I grafted in the restaurant and I saved every penny of my tips. I used to keep them in a sock in my room in London, and then because I was so scared of anyone stealing them. And then every time I went back to Newcastle, I'd bring this sock of money to my dad, and I would just tip it on the floor and be like, can you bank this for us? This is all going towards Edinburgh. And I used that money to pay for a PR, because everybody was like, you need PR, you need PR. And I was like, I don't know what PR, no one's ever taught me what PR is. I haven't grown up in this world, but everybody said I needed it if I was doing a debut, so I paid for that from my sock money. And then I went to the Pleasance to do my debut in this 50-seater room. And I remember it being, and obviously your debut is your chance to be like, this is me, mate. It's a big thing, to do your debut. And I remember thinking, I am going to show people, I think people underestimate me. I really do. I think they think I'm someone who's a canny little club comic. She, she does all right at it, but I don't think they realise that I'm going to surprise people. The more I got to do an hour, the more I realised I loved having an hour, and that my strength was in storytelling, which I hadn't realised doing shorter sets. And I remember me PR being like, at what point do you want reviewers to come in? And I was like, I don't know, as soon as possible. I don't know, whatever. And so I think the festival started on the Thursday, the Friday. So I had not too many people the Thursday, Friday. Saturday, Sunday was quite busy. And then on the Monday, I got the first 5-star review from the list. So not only was it like me getting a 5-star review, but I was the first comedian that they gave 5-star. It was
nice.
We're talking day 3 of the festival, and I felt everybody's head collectively go rumph, like who to get a 5-star that soon into the festival. But as well, I'm quite oblivious because this is my first time doing this, and I was like, was that like not normal or something? And people were like, it's very quick to have a 5-star review come out. And then suddenly I found myself, I was looking at like the calendar, you know, on the Fringe when you go on the website, and it's red if you've sold out that day. And I was like, oh look, it's gone red for today. Cool, I've sold out. I couldn't sell 20 tickets. I was given ice creams last year to get people to come in, and then I found it was red for today and tomorrow. And I was like, I've sold out a day in advance. This is wild. And then suddenly the entire following week was red, and I was like, the fuck is happening? I was like, I can't, especially the year I'd had before. I was like, I was in a 20-seater room playing at one point to nobody, and now my show, and then by the halfway point of the festival, whole run had sold out. Wow. Couldn't get a ticket. I had extra shows, and people were like, you're taking this, so some people would let that go to their head, and I was like, man, this is just like, because I'm excited.
You're great.
I was like, I can't tell you. I was in an attic last year having to give out ice lollies to get people to come. There was some days where I had nobody. I went, and now people cannot get a ticket in my show. I went, I don't think you understand just how buzzing I am with that. Like, I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. And then I got like the nomination for Best Newcomer, and everyone was like, you must have been expecting it. And I was like, no. Genuinely no, because sometimes people have the buzziest, most amazing Fringe, which is what I was having, but they don't get recognised by the awards. I've seen some amazing shows that have had so much hype that haven't got that recognition. So again, I never allowed it to even come into my brain. I was like, what matters? Does getting nominated really matter? No. Would it be nice? Yeah. Does it matter? No. What matters is you are having fun. What matters is you are happy. What matters is you are enjoying yourself. And I was like, I am having so much fun. I am so fucking happy. All I've wanted is people to come and see me. That's all I've wanted. Like, people to didn't even necessarily care about selling out. I just wanted people to come, and people were coming. And I was like, this is everything I could have. I set myself 3 targets for that Fringe. It was to get a 4-star review. A 4-star review. It was to sell out my 2-for-1 days, because I know they tend to sell out because the tickets are cheaper. And what was the other thing? I think we get invited to one of the like international festivals. They are very like achievable small goals. And then, you know, I sold out pretty much every show. We added extra shows. Like, I got 5-star reviews, and I just thought, how could I not just enjoy this? Some people get so fixated on the awards, and I thought, but how could I not enjoy this for what it is? Like, I'm just so happy with this. Getting nominated was also very nice.
Yeah, it's a nice little cherry on the top, isn't it?
But I just thought, I've always been a believer in, it's very easy to get sidetracked by all the glittery things along the way, but what is happening right now, and are you happy with it? Are you having fun? And I was having so much. I cannot tell you, every day, knowing that I had 50 people in that room, I was like, this is sick. This is amazing. Like, this is so good. And I just thought, that's all that matters. Are you happy? Are you having fun? Are you enjoying yourself? Yeah, cool. Well, then you've got everything you could possibly want and need. Yeah. Anything else is a bonus. And if the bonuses come, sick. If they don't, you're still happy. You're still having fun. Amazing.
I love that, because you just, no, like you said, some comedians be bummed out by a room of no people, but you just did everything with it anyway. You just turned up. I think that's probably the thing I've taken away from your stories. You just turned up every time, regardless. Like, yep, I'm gonna no one in here. I'm gonna keep doing it.
Happen. That's what I think. Shit is always gonna happen. How do you make the best of it? Yeah. How do you? Because I think if we, obviously sometimes some really bad things happen, but if we allow ourselves to get like too bogged down in everything, it just becomes so hard to see your way through it, kind of thing. So I'm like, well, if you can just try as much as possible to just make the most of it, I think it makes moving forward a lot easier. Yeah. And then I think that's a very long-winded way around the question, but off the back of that, that's when I got all the international stuff, and I was like, this is the best year of my life. Yeah. This is amazing.
Don't worry about that. I put it away loads of times, so we got like 2 hours we can go on this if you want.
Amazing.
But I want to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that you've done outside of comedy. So you actually, I listened to a podcast that you did with Calm.
I loved doing that.
So it was Conversations Against Living Miserably, right? So you had loads of it was just comedians, wasn't it? It was like loads of comedians.
Yeah, mainly comedians, couple like comedy actors, but everyone was sort of comedy adjacent.
Yeah, well, one person you interviewed, which I found very interesting, was Richard Gard, who is now everyone knows his name because of Baby Reindeer. And I was listening to that, I was like, holy shit, like that was what, 2019?
We got the OG
Yeah, you were in there
scoop,
first. Yeah. What was your reaction when you saw that blow up and you were like, I've interviewed this guy? We talked about this. Like,
Richard's always been like a buzzy name on especially the fringe circuit. He does amazing fringe shows. So there was this show that I'm pretty sure he won the award for called Monkey See, Monkey Do. And I can't remember, it might have been the year before, it might have been 2016. And that was like 2017, and it was on the free fringe, and so obviously free fringe you can't pre-book a ticket, you have to turn up. People were queuing to get into the show, you could not get in, and I managed to get in to see it, and I was like, yeah, it was amazing, it was incredible, I loved it. That went on to like wonderful things after, and I was like, right, I've heard people talk about this Richard guy before, but I was like, I get it now, that was amazing. And then fast forward a couple of years, and he was doing this show called Baby Reindeer, but it was billed as theatre. It was not comedy, it was not in the comedy section, it was theatre. And I wasn't in Edinburgh that year. That was the 1 year I took off Edinburgh, but I was living in London, and it came at the Bush Theatre. And I went to see it at the theatre, and I was blown away. It was like in the round, and the texts and things were like projected. It was he's such an amazing performer as well, and it was just captivating to what, you know, when you realise you haven't breathed in ages. And I thought that was amazing. And then obviously COVID hit, and I think everyone then just shrank quite literally into their own bubbles. And then I heard it had been picked up for Netflix, and I was like, rightly so.
So was the stage show exactly more or less what it was?
Yeah, it was that story, but it was just him. So there was obviously there was other characters in it, but no other actors, if that makes sense. It was just him, but it was it was one of the best pieces of theatre I've seen, and I'm not just saying that to blow smoke up his arse. He doesn't need me to blow smoke up his arse.
Yeah, he's won an award recently, I think, didn't he?
Emmy. He's got Emmys coming out of his arse. No room for smoke. But
like, do you remember me? I interviewed you in 2019.
Exactly. But this is the thing. He's such a nice guy. Really, really nice. And to see something so incredible happen to someone very nice, I think makes it all the better, because you're like, well, yeah, good for you, you deserve this, you worked for it. Like,
I mean, it's a shame what he had to go through in order to tell the story.
Yeah,
but
it's like, I wish that bit didn't happen to you.
Yeah.
But I was buzzing that it was coming on Netflix, and I think obviously I knew it was going to be good because I'd seen the stage show, but I don't think anyone quite anticipated just how much it was going to go boom, like blow up. But yeah, nice person, and very much deserves all the success and more. Same podcast, we had Brett Goldstein. And this was pre-Ted Lasso days. And even my boyfriend the other day was like, you're telling me you've been in the room with Brett Goldstein? And I was like,
you didn't tell me.
Couldn't probably get anywhere near him now. He's too famous. But I was like, mate, your bird back in the day interviewed all the big hitters.
Claim to fame, I love it.
Exactly, yeah. But I love doing that podcast. I was really grateful. It was my friend Aaron who had a Twitter account called Technically Ron, and he had loads of Twitter. He was very, very funny on Twitter, back when Twitter was not a hellscape.
Yeah.
Very, very funny account. And then he came to see my Edinburgh show, and I remember being like, Technically Ron is coming to my Edinburgh show, and everyone was like, who the fuck is that? And I was like, you don't get it. You're not chronically online. You don't get it. And then me and him became friends. And then he approached me and said, so he was an ambassador for Calm, but he also worked for Dave doing their social media. And he said, Dave would like to start a podcast in association with Calm. Obviously, they would like me to do it. He went, I don't just want to do it with another white bloke as a host. He was like, there's a lot of podcasts that have got that format. He was like, I think you would bring something so amazing. You're going to bring a younger perspective, a female perspective. He went, also a comedy perspective. He's not a comedian. He's a very funny guy, but he's not a comedian. So I said yes, and I loved it. I loved doing it. I learned so much doing it. I realised how much I would maybe love to maybe one day go into presenting or have a go at doing something like that. And the more... I kind of knew I was a bit of an anxious person, but I didn't really know what that meant. And the more people I spoke to, the more I understood myself and my own brain, and the more I felt like part of something and less alone. And I was like, oh, it's not just that I'm a little bit weird, it's just that I'm this or that, and that person feels like that too, so this is completely normal. And I loved doing it. And then we did a few like lockdown specials, which were amazing. And then they just didn't want any more of it. And I had a couple of people come to us in the fringe and be like, we wish that you'd done more of it. And I was like, I suppose that's the only downside to doing a podcast for like a company.
They can just access at any time.
Yeah, and I had a fantastic time doing it with them. But obviously, as is the way of the world, sometimes they just go, we've had enough of that. It's time for something else. Yeah. But I loved doing it. I had so much fun. I used to wind Darren up so much. It was one day we had Larry Dean on. Me and Larry are friends. And I think me and Larry were just speaking like rudimentary Spanish for part of it or something. You could see Aaron's getting really frustrated because he obviously was meant to kind of keep it on track, but the more comfortable I got, the more that I just would like run with it. And it was and that started my relationship with Calm, and I've now ran 4 Great North runs for Calm.
Yes.
Yeah, and raised £8,000 lovely pounds.
Incredible.
For them.
Nice.
So I'm really grateful to them for not only for that opportunity to do that, which then had massive impact on my confidence, but also my own understanding of mental health, but just for everything that they then do in their own work as well. And it started a very lovely little partnership with me and them.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it was an amazing podcast. But speaking about more like presenting stuff, you did the commentator for Takeshi's Castle, which when I saw that, I was like, I'm fucking jealous, right? Although I do have to say the old school show was way better. Like, it was more brutal, I think. So like people would literally like run full into brick walls.
This was when things were sort of, when I'd gone from I'd left my day job, I was like, will I ever be a full-time comedian? We're going to give it a go, see what happens. And then I had the really good Edinburgh, and suddenly sort of opportunities I'd never had before were coming in, not just to go abroad, but to do mad shit in this country. And they were like, Takeshi's Castle's coming back. Roman Kemp was going to be like the host on every episode, and he was going to have a guest in, like, everyone with him. And I was like, sick, sign me up, count me in. So I remember they sent a car for us, and I'd never been sent a car before. And I was like, how the other? I was like, I can get the tube. And they were like, no, we'll send a car. And I was like, I love the tube. Like, I read my book on the tube. And they were like, we will send you a car. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went, and I remember I was in hair and makeup for ages, and this is like, I've never really had my hair and makeup done before. And I was like, God, I could look half decent if I knew what I was doing. This is a revelation. And then they sat me in a room with Roman Kemp, who was lovely. This was before he went in the jungle. He was really nice, really good lad. And then they put the episode of Takeshi's Castle on, and they were like, yeah, so just commentate on it. And I thought, this will be a trial run, whatever, so, watch it through once. So I commented on it. What's an episode, 25 minutes? Get to the end. And they were like, yeah, brilliant, so thank you so much, that's it. And I remember thinking, could this be, like, if this is now going to be a day's work from now on, sign me up.
Easy peasy.
Sign me up. But it was a lot of fun. But one that was arguably even more fun, which I don't know if it's on your list and I'm jumping the gun, was playing football with Chris Kamara.
That's not on my list. No. I did see that, but it's not on my list. No, yeah.
So this was probably around that period of time. Also as well when TV channels had money to make little daft things like this, as opposed to now when nobody's got any money to do anything.
It's mostly not on my list because I don't understand football very well. So
that's why. Neither did I. But
I couldn't fake it.
There was some series coming out on Comedy Central that I'm guessing was something to do with sport. So they were making like an accompanying thing to go online, and it was going to be comedians learning to play football with some footballer, and Chris Kamara, I think, was just there to sort of like kind of host, judge, commentate sort of thing. Yeah. So I turned up, I think it was Crystal Palace somewhere. Again, I got sent a car, and at this point I was like, please have me a car, because I've got no idea where Crystal Palace is. So yeah, the other one, fine. This one, no idea where I'm going. And I'm in my little sporty stuff, and I turned up, and the footballer couldn't make it. They were sick or something. So the production team are panicking a bit. They were like, fuck, what do we do? So they rejigged it, and what a good sport he is, quite literally. They were like, so Cammy's going to teach you football. That's what's going to, rather than him just sort of being there to like float around and be like the wise person, he's going to. So I spent a morning learning how to play football with Chris Kamara. And I don't really know football. I've never really played football. It was the best morning of my life. I have so much fun. I have never wanted to win a man's approval as much as I have in my life. It was me and Ivo Graham, and Ivo was like kind of decent. Obviously, I'm guessing he's played football before. I scored a goal at one point. I lost my mind. Cammy lost his mind. I was like, this is incredible. What a nice man he is. He was, so I had the most fun. I knew I was bad, but no. And again, this is the thing, like a few years before that, the thought of playing football badly on camera would have terrified us, because I would have been like, are people going to take the piss online? I thought, it doesn't matter. The whole point is he's teaching us. I'm trying.
It makes better TV if you don't do it well.
Exactly. I'm giving it a go. We're having fun. I'm not here because I am good at football. I'm here because I'm funny, whatever. And I remember when we'd wrapped up filming at the end of the day, I went over to him and I was like, can I get a picture with you? Is that okay? Like, honestly, I've had so much fun. And he was like, you did so well. And like, honestly, you improved so much. And I thought, I think Cammy is my dad now. This is amazing. Like, I've just never wanted somebody to say they're proud of me as much as I did Chris Kamara that day. What a joy he was to work with. What a wonderful man he is. Like, I still wheel that picture out every year. Me and Chris Kamara.
Just casually on the phone wallpaper, just slide across the table. Oh, did you see that? Oh,
it's on my wall in my living room with like a bunch of other photos. And every now and then it's like there's workmen around or something. And they're like, is that you and Chris Kamara? And I'm like, yes, it is.
Like,
yes,
funny story. And then just like...
Exactly. But that was so much fun. I love that. Just say yes to stuff. That's what I've... Again... The little anxiety brain goes, oh, well, I can't do football. I'm not good at playing football. I don't know what I'm doing. And you just think, just say it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think most people's brains do talk them out of a lot of stuff. Like, obviously, we talk about, like, imposter syndrome and stuff. But it's like, everyone on Earth has that to some degree. And if they don't, they're just a bit weird.
There's only one job I can think I've said no to in recent years. And it was just a couple of years ago. And I got offered to do it. And it was, the premise of it was the comedians would be doing their stand-ups. It was something for Channel 4 online or something. And don't get us wrong, I think the premise was good, but no, you just think that is not right for me. And this was a real moment for us of being like, sometime, it's a fine line, isn't it? You want to just say yes for the laugh, for the giggles, but also if you know it's not right for you, it is absolutely fine to say no.
Yeah.
And that was this case. So the comedians were doing their sets, but the people around them didn't know that was going to happen. So you'd be like in an escape room with a group of people, then you just had to start doing your set, or you'd be in a barber's, or you'd be, you know, like in a shop, something like that. And the people around you wouldn't know. And I looked at the brief and I thought, that, like, I'd probably like to watch that, but as someone who's very anxious, I'll be terrible at it. I know I'll be. It's not like playing football where, I'll be terrible at it, but I can style it out and like make a joke about it. This will just make me feel so uncomfortable. I'm not going to do well, and then I'm not going to come across well, and that's probably going to have a negative. No one's going to watch that and go, oh, wow, yeah, everyone's going to watch that and go, she looks like she wants to kill herself.
It's a good. I mean, that is a fair thought process.
Yeah,
though.
so I turned it down, and that was at a time as well, coming out the back of the pandemic, and when you think, could have done with the money, but I just thought, what is more important to you than money? Because it wasn't like life-changing money, but obviously it was nice money, and I just thought, no, I think I'm going to do that, hate it, feel awful about myself, and it's going to knock my confidence. And it was a good lesson in it is okay to say no. It's very fun to say yes, and it's good to try new things, but if you know it's not right for you, know yourself. Be like, no. 100%. No, thank you.
Well, one thing that was right for you was going on roast battle, because that poor dude did not stand a chance.
I know.
He was just getting battered to fuck.
I loved that so much. So I tried out for... So how all these panel shows work, I'm probably giving away so many insider secrets here.
Please do.
Is you do this thing called a run-through. So... for things like 8 or 10 Cats does countdown as well.
Yeah.
When you're trying out for that show, you'll play the show. You'll play like a game as if it's a real thing, but it's all comedians trying out for it, and it is the most combative thing. Obviously everyone wants to be heard, but I've had ones where people have gelled really nicely and it's gone amazing. I've had ones where people are just like out for each other, being like, fuck you, I want to get on this show.
Yeah, Jesus.
So I managed to get a tryout. I managed to get on the run through for roast battle, but they said this wasn't with a view to be on the show. The show was booked, but they were doing a run through just so the producers and the team could see how the show would work. But me and the guy who I was with still had to like treat it like a thing and everything. So it was at the Bill Murray Comedy Club in London. Jimmy Carr was actually there. I didn't know Jimmy Carr was going to be there, and it was me and the comedian I was with, and I think there was 2 others doing it. I can't remember. And then off the back of this, Jimmy had apparently said like they were really good about it. And this wasn't Tom who I did the show with, this was someone else. They were really good. Like, it seems a shame that they're not going to be on. So then I got told I was on standby, which means if anybody drops out, if anyone gets sick, whatever, then you're going to be on the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was not expecting this. I did that knowing I wasn't going to be on the show, but just happy to be involved, happy to be potentially seen by somebody for something for future. And then I just started dating somebody around this time, and he booked us a really nice dinner as a coming back from the Fringe present. And I was like, mind I'm on standby for this thing, but the chances of me getting picked on none. The phone rang 2:00 that day. So a car is coming to pick you up. A car's coming to get you. You're needed for filming. It might not be aired, but I think something had slightly gone wrong with one of the other duos' roasts, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to use it. So we got whisked along, and we sort of like filmed ours as a backup. Ended up not getting used, but it was a really good. I was terrified. I was so scared. But I got to actually go on the roast battle stage and everything. So then series 2 and 3 came round, and they were sort of auditioning for them together. So they were going to film series 2 in like the July and series 3 in the October or something, but they were seeing everybody at once and booking the show all together. So I was like, yes, absolutely. And they were like, this time they're doing actual tryouts for it. And I was like, sick, amazing. And my agent was like, is there anyone in particular you think would be really good with? And I was like, yep, Tom Horton. Me and Tom Horton. We've got the angle straight away. Posh, working class, male, female. There's so much that we can bounce on. We know each other as well, which
makes it even fun. Well, you can get the roasts out if you know them.
You can tell which ones actually know each other in real life and which ones don't.
Yeah.
So we did this tryout and we roofed it, right? And I'm not one normally to talk very highly of myself. I always sort of, I never like to compliment myself, but we roofed it. And me and him were like, we were smashed. We were so proud of ourselves. Got the phone call to say we'd been booked. We weren't going to be on series 2, we were going to be in series 3, so that would film in the October. And then we were told, but the production team are really keen to not pair you together. And we were like, why? We got booked off the strength of that roast. And they were like, oh, well, you know, they want the reactions to be fresh. They want it to be like, you know, all of this.
I can understand that.
And I felt like saying, do you not think that even the people who haven't been in the tryouts together, that anyone who gets paired on that show is not going to meet up and write their fucking jokes together? Like, you're mad if you think people haven't, at least, or most people haven't had a little, oh, do you want to have a little practice or whatever?
Yeah.
So we begged, we said we would do any, we both got drama degrees, we were like, we will make it, you have to book us together. They booked us together, and I was like, yes, nice. Right. So we wrote our jokes. As well, I remember you have to go for a meeting with the writers, and again, I'm so stupid. I didn't realise some people go to the writers with nothing. And so the writers are like, well, here's our jokes. And they go, yes, please, I'll have those.
Wow.
I'm stupid. No. I was like, well, I got booked for this show on the strength of, so I know I can write these jokes.
Yeah.
So I turned up and I was like, here are my jokes. Pages, pages, pages. And then there was one joke that I did workshop with them. I was like, I've got an idea, but I can't quite figure out the premise. So we workshopped one joke together, but all those other jokes, my jokes. Like, I didn't take any jokes from the writers, and I was so excited. I was like, this is going to be so fun. And then me and Tom met up, and because obviously they were like, don't go through your jokes with the other person. And I was like, again, if you think that people, when Sarah Kew and Catherine Bohart on it, I think one of them proposed to the other one, and they were like, oh my god, like, it was such a surprise. And I was like, you think they live together? Like, they were dating at the time. I was like, you think that wasn't planned? Fair enough. I think a few people don't go through their stuff together, but most people do. So me and Tom met up, and I was like, here are my jokes, here are mine. So then we were like, oh, well, that's a joke about your dad and that's a joke about mine. So we structured it like a dance, you know, like ba 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 ba. But I fucked him over just a little bit, because while we knew what jokes were coming, I hadn't told him about any little rebuffs I was going to do.
Right, yeah.
So we had the jokes, but it meant once I had his jokes, I could think of little rebuttals to say. And I didn't tell him I was going to do that. But I thought, I love you and I want this to be a good roast, but I also want me to do better. So, like, absolutely.
Sorry, bro.
So I was like, I know we are both going to come out of this looking great, but I'm about to, like, top you a little bit. And so you can see it on the thing where he does his joke, something about like me having little boobs or something, and I just come out with, well, maybe you could use some of the padding from my bra to fill the silences where your jokes don't land.
Yeah.
The crowd erupted, and you could see on his face, he's like, you didn't tell me you had comebacks.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me. And I'm like, you didn't ask me if I had comebacks. And the crowd just boom. And I thought, this is going to be such a fight. And Tom, his background's improv, so he is quick on his feet as well. So I think the second he realised she's come with comebacks, he's then starts firing him with the comebacks. Let's go. And it made the whole thing, like, you could tell we knew each other. You could tell we loved each other. And it was so much fun. Yeah. I loved it, and I won, as I should have.
When I watched it, I was like, dude, just getting battered, like left, right, and centre. I felt kind of bad for him, but I was like, it's in jest, it's all friends. And it was
such a good feeling as well, and I'm not like throwing shade on any of the other comedians on the show here, but when I sort of naively found out that some people rely more heavily on the writers than the other, I thought, well, I feel really proud of myself, because these are my jokes.
Yeah, but I think that cements you better as a comedian, to be able to write your own jokes and stuff like that. Because you don't want, like, I always find it disappointing when I hear people don't write their own material.
Yeah.
Like, I get sort of big songs, for example, are written by other people. I understand that, but I'm also like, I wanted you to write that.
Well,
there's a little bit of...
I've maybe been a bit green when I started, and obviously the further along in my career I go and the more I learn. But when I like Mock the Week was the thing, I really wanted to be on Mock the Week. And I got suggested that maybe I write jokes for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, in my little brain, that couldn't... Like, now I would do that, because now I'm heading in the direction where I would like to be a writer more probably than I'd like to be a stand-up. So I would happily do that. Yeah. But back then I was like, okay, so you're telling me that my jokes are good enough to be on the show. Because if you're saying that I could probably write for somebody else, you're saying that you think my jokes are of the quality to get on the show. But you don't want me. And it's obviously because I was like too new and not known yet and all this and all that. And at the time, I sort of considered it at the time, but then I didn't like get paired with anyone, so it never ended up actually happening. But I remember when it first got suggested, oh, maybe you could like write for somebody else. I was like, oh, that feels so fucked that like my jokes are good enough, but to be said by somebody else, But a mad old world.
You've got to keep the best for yourself. You know what I mean? You can't give away your best material.
Well, I wrote on the next series the series after Roast Battle I got in touch, and I'd sort of come round to this idea of writing for other people. I was like, for certain things I probably wouldn't do it, because again, why would I give those jokes away when I could do them? But I was like, something like Roast Battle, I wouldn't be using those jokes anywhere else. So I wrote on the second series of the Roast Battle, or the next series of the Roast Battle, and I loved it. They sent me the acts, and I had like 24 hours or whatever, and I just had to write pages and pages of roast jokes. And I thought, oh, I can actually do it. And it was, again, a good life lesson and a good sort of career lesson. I was like, I can write for somebody else. I can sort of, because I do think I've got quite a specific style, but I was like, I can remove that a step and be quite objective and be like, no, these are just, take my voice out, and these are just jokes that could be said by anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if any made it onto the show. I never actually watched that series. I do apologise. But
you have to go back and be like, that's one of mine.
That's mine.
Yeah.
That's mine. But it was my first ever little writing, additional writers or whatever, and my first ever little writing credit, and I was like, that's me!
I love it. Well, I've asked this question to every comedian I've had on, so I've got to ask it to you, and that is about heckles.
Yes.
So is there any heckle that you remember that stood out, that was like either the best one you've ever had or like the worst time you've had with it?
Oh, so I feel quite lucky in the sense I feel like I don't get it as bad as others, and I don't know if it's because I look quite little and young, so maybe people feel bad or whatever. But there was a time at a gig in Reading where there was this table who just would not stop talking, and I was getting quite near the end of my set, and I never like to take people on, because the way I see it, I've got 20 minutes of jokes that I know work. The more time I spend dealing with you, I can't then just add the time on at the end. It's not like a bloody, I think, well, then I don't get to do my stuff that I know works because I've had to deal with you. So I was trying my best to ignore it for as long as I could, thinking maybe the venue staff would step in or something. And then I heard people in the crowd going, shh, man, shh. And I thought, my rule as a comedian is once the audience are distracted, if the staff aren't stepping in, which they should, that is your job as a comedian to step in because the audience are distracted. So I went in on this table, and my approach is always kill them with kindness, because I'm always worried that as a woman in comedy, if you turn on someone, people go, she's a bit of a bitch, isn't she? Oh, that's nasty. It gets seen as slightly different to like how a man would do it, where it's like, oh, that was, I was confident, he took them on, whatever. So I just went to this table and I looked at my watch. I went, I've got 3 minutes left on stage. I went, if you're not enjoying it, I do apologise. I went, but there's other people in this room who are, everybody's paid the same ticket price to be here, kind of thing. I've got, in 3 minutes, you can go to the toilet and you can slag me off as much as you like, and then you'll have a break, and maybe you'll enjoy the headliner way more than you did me. I went, but there's people, so the kill them with kindness approach, like that kind of thing. And it worked, and like they shut up, and the crowd were like, yes. I thought, I handled this really well. Didn't feel good about it, but I handled it well.
Yeah.
Got a message on Instagram the next day from that table, apologetic. They'd been talking about how much they were enjoying it, but obviously they'd had a bit too much to drink. And I think this is, for anyone listening or watching this who goes to comedy regularly, if you've had a drink and you're in the crowd, I think you don't realise how loud you're being sometimes. Yeah. So what might be a little whisper to you is actually very noticeable to everybody else. Yeah. So they'd been chatting about how, oh, isn't she thinking they were whispering, but they'd actually been really fucking loud. No. And then I'd gone and they were like, we're so sorry, we only realised now that we were probably a bit drunk, a bit loud, but we don't want you to think that we didn't. And I thought, fair play to them for messaging.
Yeah,
and I didn't feel too bad because they were lovely, they were really nice about it. There was one bad one. Again, not a bad one. This is when I was on the Free Fringe with Sammy Dobson, who I think's been on.
Yes. Yeah.
Me, Sammy Dobson, and Hal Branson, and we were in a tiny little room on the Free Fringe, in the side room of a punk rock bar kind of thing. And there was these people in the front row just wouldn't stop talking. They talked through Hal. They talked through Sammy. 20 years old or whatever. We've like had quite a disastrous Free Fringe. People aren't coming, whatever. At the end of the month, I'm tired. So I came out. These people started talking. I went, look, I don't mean to be rude. I went, but you've talked through everybody. I went, it's not telly. I can see you. I can hear you. You're right here. Yeah. I went, you haven't actually paid anything to be here. I went, so if you're not enjoying it, you can leave. I went, we have paid something to be here. We've paid a lot of money to be here. We're not making any money, but we just want to perform to people and try and become better. Again, the kind of kill them with kindness thing, but I was a little bit aggressive because I was 20. And it turned out she was Spanish and was asking him to translate words she didn't understand. And when I tell you, there wasn't many people in that room to start with, but they turned against me because they obviously thought, what a cow. And looking back, I probably was a little bit too hostile, but also respect. What a great way to improve your English to come to comedy. Maybe sit at the back. Maybe sit at the back and go, oh, what's that word? But they were sitting right at the front. And I was like, now I feel like the biggest arsehole in the world because that's actually quite wholesome and quite cute. But also, you're sitting at the front. Like, this is mad. So that was a bad one. And then I had one not long ago in Stockton where I felt like the queen. Like, it was the guy who was MCing. Within 10 minutes of him MCing, somebody had to be removed from the venue.
Great
so
start.
That's never a good start. And then, bless him, he did 10 more minutes of MCing just to try and set the room up. Like, it had been the worst kind of hecklers as well, where it's just nonsense. They were just chipping in this guy, but it was nothing really that he could bounce off. And when the compere was saying something back, the guy was just like, so it was just, there was no flow. It was really disruptive and weird. I went on, and within, I'd say 5 or 10 minutes, I heard chatter from the same area. And obviously it's dark. I don't know if it's the same people. I hadn't seen who it was. So again, the little kill them with kindness. I went, if you're not enjoying it, I was like, I'm halfway through. I went, we've already had loads of disruption, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I went, but please just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. And then they carried on. I'd maybe been going a minute more. And when I tell you, I lost my temper. I really did. I went, I fucking told you. I was like, shut the fuck up or get the fuck out. I went, we're in a cost of living crisis. People work hard, save their money, come out, have a good night of comedy. I went, you're ruining it for everyone because you think people want to hear you. I went, I had a colposcopy last year. I went, that's where a little bit of my cervix got removed for a biopsy. I went, I'd rather go through that again than listen to fucking you speak, blah, blah. I went, no, in the back of my mind, I'm going, this is going to go one of two ways. The crowd are going to turn against you because you're being quite aggressive, or you are going to become the mayor of Stockton. There is no middle ground. But the crowd had been shushing this man as well, so I thought, I think the crowd might be on my side. Security came, took him out. The crowd were like, yeah, yeah. I felt like the rest of the gig amazing, like, but every now and then I kept going, I'm really sorry about that. I'm not normally an aggressive person. They were like, you are amazing. I was like, I know, but I was doubting myself because all I was thinking was I was the most hostile I've ever been on stage ever in a 12-year career, and I thought, am I going to get in trouble from the promoter? And I came off and I was like, I'm so sorry. And they were like, no, you handled that so well. And I was like, and even my boyfriend, who's seen me do stand-up a million times, went, I have never seen you like that. He went, it's like you just flicked a switch and went, that's not fucking happening. He went, I've never seen you so direct. I've never seen you so, like, assertive. And I went, I know, I really didn't like it. And you went, Lauren, it was brilliant.
It was hot.
He was like, it was so good. But again, I think the only reason I felt comfortable to do that is the crowd had been booing him when I was on, they'd been booing him when the compere was on. But there is that little bit of your mind that thinks, I've gone 100. Yeah, I've committed to my reaction. Yeah. And if this goes badly, I'm not doing the remaining 10 minutes on this on this stage. But I just
the gamble paid off.
It paid off. I think when the MC's on, I don't like heckling full stop, but usually when the MC's on, the MC can handle it, whatever. Yeah. I think when the acts are on, just let them do their set. Let them do. Very rarely have I been to a gig where I've seen someone heckle and go, that's actually improved the night. Yeah. You know what? That's really significantly. The only time is if a compere has been talking to someone and they have instigated it, and sometimes someone will come out with some gold, but again, that's not a heckle. That's audience participation.
Banter,
and I think people forget they are two different things. They are two. I'm like, look, if you want to have a go at stand-up, great, sign up. You sign up and you have your time. Let me have my time. Yeah. Let me have my time.
No, 100%. I do love MCs when they
banter,
come on. Yeah, I love it. I think that's my favourite part of a lot of the comedy stuff. But if some people they try too hard to get it back.
And the MCs as well know which questions to ask to sort of bring steer people
energy up,
and, to keep things flowing. But when someone's just chipping in, it is so annoying.
Yeah.
So annoying.
It is. So, in terms of your career, obviously we spoke massive about everything you've done, and you sound really fucking impressive. Like, to anyone listening, they're probably going, fuck me, she's done way more than I've done, right? But in 2021, sort of the whole COVID thing, you had a post on Instagram where, I don't know how much of this is truth, so you'll have to clarify, but you posted that you weren't sure that the comedy world wanted you, and you weren't sure of your faith and your ability. And obviously you've done all this up until this point. What happened during that time, and how did you sort of come out of that bubble?
So that's something I definitely felt then it was true, and if I'm being completely honest, it's something I quite regularly feel even now. So I trust that I am a good comedian, and I'm good at what I do, and I know I'm good at what I do, but and obviously the rise of social media and stuff has changed things, so gatekeepers are less important and stuff, and you can sort of do your own thing and carve your own path. But while I know I am good at what I do, I often don't feel like the comedy industry itself wants to acknowledge that my face doesn't fit, whatever. And that's a feeling that I've grappled with on and off for years. I still occasionally feel like that now, but I felt it a lot in 2021. So obviously COVID had happened. I'd had a really good year in 2017. I'd then had a good year in 2018. I'd not gone at the Fringe in 2019. I was like, it's so expensive. I was like, but I'm going to start working on my show early. I'm going to come back with a bang 2020. And again, I was like, I felt like the comedy industry wasn't paying me. I was getting all these amazing opportunities overseas and stuff. And I was getting cool little jobs here. But, you know, those bigger things weren't coming. Those things that would step us up to the big leagues weren't coming. And I was trying not to be resentful about it. And I was like, right, but what else I can keep working hard. I'm going to keep grafting. And I just need someone to give us a chance. I'm doing all I can do. I just need to focus on being the best I can be and just hope someone gives me that chance one day. And those chances weren't coming. Then COVID hit, and when you just think, fuck, oh my god. So I came back up to Newcastle, what I thought was going to be temporarily, and ended up for the best being permanently. But no, I just sort of looked around at other people and I thought, you've got safety nets, whether that be family money or whether that be you have another career under your belt. You know, you started stand-up later in life and you were an established this or this beforehand, so God forbid the worst happens, you can go back to being an electrician, a teacher, a doctor. I thought, I got a drama degree. I got no stability. Like this career as a comedian goes tits up, and what is there? My background is drama. I was like, yes, there are things I could do with that degree, but again, those things are also not particularly stable. And I do think it's a working class thing as well. I felt the fragility of the arts industry, the creative industry. I'd known it was fragile the whole time, but this is the first time I really, really felt it and felt scared by it. Every other time I was like, well, I know it's it's fragile, I know it's precarious, but I'm hungry and I'm going to work for it, but what happens when you're hungry and you will work for it, but suddenly there are no opportunities, there is nothing
for anyone.
And all I could think was, if this has happened once, who's to say it could happen again? The comedy clubs were and the theatres were one of the first things to close down, really. And I remember watching this diary that I'd worked so hard for to be a full-time comedian. And to be a full-time comedian in London, where rent's expensive, like, you know, it's not that it's easier to be a full-time comedian anywhere else, but obviously there's less financial pressures being, now it's financially pressured everywhere because the economy is fucked. But, you know, if I'd been a full-time comedian in Newcastle, I would have been more comfortable, but it was in London, I was really having to graft to be able to afford that. And I remember just watching the work disappear. It was like, no, take me out when the turn the lights off. That was my diary, and I was just like, everything I have worked for has gone. It's gone. My work for the year has gone. The Fringe show that I was planning to do, to come back with a splash and be like, this is me, this is what, has gone. The Fringe isn't happening. So if the Fringe isn't happening, that tour that you are going to go on later in the year isn't happening. And then I was like, and the club's on open, so you can't do this. And I just thought, and again, we were all in that boat, weren't we? Of being like, well, how long is this going to go on for? And I remember just being in this real crisis of confidence of being like, I don't have any sort of safety net to just keep us floating. So I went straight back out and got a job at Morrison's. I was working at Morrison's within a month. I was like, right, again, making the best of a bad situation. I was like, cool, I've lost my job. I need some money. I'm not above anything, just like I'm not above anything in the comedy industry. I'll do whatever I can. And I went and worked at bloody Morrison's, and I was there for over a year. And I was like, I'll hustle for as long as it takes to get this back again, sort of thing. But I just had this horrible doubt of being like, I was already feeling a little bit like the comedy industry didn't want me. After a year of nothing, when things start coming back, am I going to be the one who it comes to? Or is it going to go straight back to the ones who were doing well before? And I thought, how much longer can I slog away hoping for that bigger opportunity, that bigger break? And I thought, I don't know if I can do this. And then I was working in the supermarket. And again, no shame in working in the supermarket. But I thought, if I have to do this forever, I will be sad. I will be, again, not that there's any shame in being in a shop, but I thought, I'm not happy.
You'd had a taste of the bigger life, though. That's the alternative.
And it's like what I was saying before. Are you happy? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you having fun?
Yeah.
If I was all of those things in the supermarket, great, but I was not happy.
Yeah.
I was not enjoying myself. I was not having fun. And I was like, I am so, and this fire lit in my belly, and I was like, I will do anything to get my career back and to get, even if I'm not doing it full time, even if I'm working and doing stand up on the side, like I will do whatever it takes. But I was like, I felt it for the first time of being like, even if the industry itself doesn't want me and doesn't want to put me on these various shows or give me the more glamorous opportunities, I know I'm a good comedian and I will find a way to make it work and make my own work. And I started writing my 2022 show. So I'd been kind of writing it when the pandemic hit, but then I suddenly realised I couldn't write that show. That show was going to be about trying to fit into London with my boyfriend, and suddenly I'm not in London, I don't have a boyfriend. And I was like, right, what can I write this new show? So I was writing on the back of receipts. So I'd be on the tills. Sorry, Morrison's, I did do a lot of slacking while I worked there. And I would print out a blank receipt and I would jot down ideas for jokes on the receipt and stuff, jot down these little ideas. And then I would do Zoom gigs and I would try out these ideas. I remember doing a gig to nobody at the stand when they were doing these live stream gigs. So all the comedians were there, but you had to all be socially distanced, and then the gig was being live streamed, and I turned up in my Morrison's uniform because I'd come straight from work, and I thought, I've gone back 5 years when I used to finish work at the restaurant, put me jumper on top, go to London and do a gig, and people would years later be like, you did smell of ketchup and mustard when you came to because I'd come straight from a 12-hour day at Byron Burger. And I thought, God, I've gone back in time. I'm hustling to try and get a career, to try and get away from the day job, putting me green Morrison's fleece on top and getting on the bus and going to the stand. And I thought, I'll get it back, and I'm jotting down all these ideas, testing them out at Zoom gigs, started writing the 2022 show. Well, originally it was going to be the 2021 show, but the Fringe didn't happen in 21 either. And I thought, just keep what you do well, Lauren, is an hour of comedy. That is your strength. That's what you do best, storytelling comedy. You are going to turn all of this into a show. And I remember the 2021 Fringe didn't happen, but very last minute they decided they were going to do like a mini Fringe, very like low-key, small, one-off shows, all of this. So I did 2 shows at the Monkey Barrel, and I found out about it 2 weeks before it was due to happen. And they were like, right, so what do you want your show to be called? And I just went, it is what it is. Because I thought, if there's anything that sums up this year, it is what it is. And I jotted down all these loose ideas on a bit of paper. And I went up to the Monkey Barrel for 2 nights in August 2021 with this A4 notebook. It wasn't a show, and they knew it wasn't a show. I was like, this is just ideas. And I came off stage and I could feel my skin tingling. And I thought, you haven't stopped being a comedian. You are a comedian. That has never gone away. That will never leave. You just currently don't have the opportunities to be a comedian. And I was like, babe, this is where you're meant to be. And I felt this buzz in the room that I hadn't felt since 2017 when I walked on, little working class 23-year-old Lauren who'd never really been given a big opportunity before, and I showed everybody what I could do. And I felt it again that month, and I was like, this is going to be special. And I grafted on that show. I worked other day jobs. I went to work in a restaurant. I left Morrison's. I went to work in a restaurant, and then I went to work at Alphabet Theatre on the box office, because I was almost getting to the point where I could come back to comedy, but I needed a few hours a week, and they were like, come and do box office for us if you need something that's just a few hours a week. So they were great, just to allow me to have that bit of stability before committing to being full-time again. And then just like 2017, a couple of months before the Fringe, same time, April, I made the plunge. I went, right, May onwards is when you really have to commit to your Fringe show. So April 2017, I'd quit my job to focus on the Fringe and gone, we'll just see what happens. April 2022, I quit my day job to focus on the Fringe. Went up to the Fringe in 2022. Bigger room than what I'd done before.
Better than the attic.
Much better than aircon, yeah. And again, I was just like 2017. I was loving doing my show every single day. It was a show about moving back to Newcastle, breaking up with my boyfriend, working at Morrison's, trying to get my career back. That's what this show was. And I was loving doing it, absolutely loving it. The audience seemed to be loving it. It was getting nice reviews. And again, I was like, are you enjoying yourself? Are you having fun? Are you happy? I was like, I am so happy to be doing this again. And then I wasn't thinking about, so when you are in the pool for newcomer, even though I didn't think I was going to be nominated, you're aware of it. It's a small pool. There's 50, 60 shows. So you know, statistically, you're in with a chance. That year, I was not thinking. To be eligible for Best Show, you're in with over 1,000 other shows, if not more.
Yeah.
Wasn't something that crossed my mind. And then I'd had a lovely month, a lovely few weeks. You know, it wasn't selling out every day, but I was busy, and some of my days were selling out, and I was making nice money in the bucket because I was doing a similar model where you could book a ticket in advance. So I was just having the best time. And again, when people now say it was, oh, well, my show hasn't sold out, I feel bad. I'm like, my show that year didn't sell out every day and I still had the best time.
Yeah.
But then the last week, it was like the bin strikes. I think the trains were on strike. The weather, we'd had a lovely summer, but then the weather changed. Remember that last Monday of the last week of the Fringe, I was about half full. And it was the first time I'd been half full. Everything else had been like sort of 2/3 upwards.
Yeah.
There was a dip in energy. There was a dip in the room. And I thought, oh, I think you need to really focus on what's happened and enjoy the 2.5 weeks that have been. Don't let what's about to happen this week ruin it, because I think numbers are going to drop, vibes are going to drop, but you have had a lovely month. Do not let anything take away from that. And then the Tuesday was nicer, but I decided I was going to get the train back to Newcastle, have Tuesday night with my dog and my boyfriend, come back up on the Wednesday. So I packed all of my stuff from my little room in halls, because I thought, I'll be less stuff to take back on the weekend. Went back to Newcastle, had a lovely night with the dog and the boyfriend, got the train back up on Wednesday, looking on Twitter, and everybody's like, good luck for nominations today. And I thought, oh, fuck, it's nominations day. So I opened up my notes app and I made my predictions list, and there Jordan Gray was on there. I can't remember who else, but Josh Pugh was on there. Made my little list of predictions. I went and I did my show, and then had a voiceover job in Leith. So I get an Uber to Leith, and there's no signal in this room, and I know it gets announced at about 3 o'clock. If you've been nominated, you get told before, but it's embargoed, but it gets like announced to the public at 3 o'clock.
Right.
At this point, I'm still thinking I do not have any chance at all, because as well, I don't ask to find out when the people are coming in. Some people like to know exactly, so they're like, oh my God, the panel are in, the panel are in. I'm just like, don't tell me, and then I'll do the show the same every single day. So I had one text from the agent that just said, where are you? And I thought, oh God, what have I done? What? Because this was quite a new agent. I'd sort of just, like, my old agent had left, and I'd just signed to her before the summer, and I was like, oh my God, have I done something wrong? No signal, nothing. I'm in this voiceover booth, like, come and play Make a Bingo, thinking, what have I done? Have I said something in the show? Have I got a terrible review? I don't know. And then I'm sitting, and then about 4 o'clock, somehow I get a patch of signal, and my phone just went rumph. My phone blew up, and I'm like, Jesus, I'm popular. And all these messages are saying, congratulations, well done. Oh my God, you've smashed it. So proud of you. And I'm thinking, what are people on about? Like, the penny still hadn't dropped. And then I thought, don't tell me I've been fucking nominated. Have I been? So I got on Twitter, it refreshed, and I saw I'd been tagged in the tweet. Congratulations to our nominees for Best Show. And
nice.
I have never felt anything. Like, obviously I was buzzing in 2017, but I knew I was in with this knocked the wind from underneath us. I told my boyfriend I thought I was having a heart attack, and he said that's pure adrenaline in your body. I'd never felt it before. But the second I got the signal, it had gone again. So I couldn't do any more digging. So I'm like, guys, I just need to let you know, I think I've been nominated. And bless this marketing team, they were like, oh, amazing. What for? And that was a real humbling moment of like, yes, remember, this is really cool for you, but also, outside of comedy, nobody really knows or gives a fuck. So don't let it go to your head. Finished the voiceover, I came downstairs, my agent was there, and I was like, have I been? And she's like, I couldn't get hold of you. She went, they rang to tell me. And I then went to tell you, but you were already in this voiceover booth. She was like, I've been down here for like however long waiting for you. And I was shaking, and I didn't know who to celebrate with. I went and celebrated with like my agency, my PR and stuff. I had a gig in the evening, and then after that I was like, I want to celebrate. Who do I go celebrate with? And I'll tell you who I went and celebrated with. My old, he wasn't the performing arts teacher, he was a science teacher, Mr. Heaney, but he used to do all the school plays. He was the one who put on the school plays. He'd been in Edinburgh that day, and he'd come to see us, and I texted him, and I was like, do you want to go get a pint? And I am the coolest person in the world, because while everybody else was celebrating with their teams, I celebrated with my old school teacher from when I was 15, and we went and had a pint together, and I was like, there's nobody else I would have rather shared that moment with.
Brilliant.
No,
I love it.
Obviously, like, my family would have been nice if they were there, but I thought, in a moment that is so overwhelming and so, like, oh my God, because everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody, like, my phone was buzzing. People I'd never spoke to in years suddenly wanted to, like, talk to us, and I thought, how nice to spend this moment with somebody who actually properly knows us, like, has known me for so long, and I had just the best night having a couple of pints with my old teacher. Like, that's so cute. Celebrating. But yes, that was, again, I don't know if that answers what I was at.
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. From the age of like 18, sort of, where you start in comedy up until now, what do you think's like the biggest change you've seen yourself? What's the one thing about you personally that you're most proud of that's maybe changed?
I still think I am a very anxious person, but I think I'm a lot more in control of who I am. Yeah. So I think I'm aware that just being anxious is part of who I am, just like some people are very confident.
Yeah. Were you anxious for this, or were you just kind of like,
this is a format I'm comfortable with, if you know what I mean. I'm like, I know, I do, no doubt, I'll go home and I'll be like, oh God, what if somebody doesn't like me because I said this? Or what if somebody misinterprets? So I'll fixate on that, but I'm getting better at just being like, just stop. People are probably always, even if you say, I like apples, someone will find a way of being like,
she fucking likes apples.
Exactly. Can you believe that? So I try not to fixate on it too much, because I'm like, no matter what you say, someone's probably going to misinterpret it, or someone's going to not like it, whatever. So just don't fixate over it. But I feel like I'm just a lot more in control of who I am, and I'm very happy with who I am. Like, I think I spent a lot of my early years so desperately wanting to fit in and wanting to be this, and now I'm just like, I know exactly who I am, and I love who I am. I'm not changing for nobody. I think I'm a good person, and that's all that matters, and I know I'm a good person, and I think that's the biggest. While I've still got a lot of, doubt in my abilities at times, of course, we all have those times where our brain's against us. I think just in terms of being comfortable with me and who I am, I'm like, if I could go back to 18-year-old Lauren, or even 15-year-old Lauren, and be like, mate, don't be upset that you didn't get invited to that party, because in 15 years' time, you're going to realise you never wanted to go to that party in the first place.
Yeah.
Stop doing things because you think it's the right thing to do, or stop doing things because you think it's what that person wants to hear. The second you start living, and this was kind of the message of that show I wrote, the second you start living your life for you and to please you, so much better. So the decisions I make are on whether I'll be happy and whether that's what I want to do, and whether that will benefit me, rather than thinking, oh, but if I do this, then maybe this person will like me, or maybe if I do this, then I'll look cool, or if I do this, I just think, no, like, I'm really I'm way more comfortable in my own skin than like I ever used to be, and I think that is a really, I suppose it's part and parcel with getting older, but I'm like, oh, I'd love to be able to zip back in a time machine. To me, like looking in the mirror and desperately covering up all the psoriasis on my skin with concealer. Oh, heaven forbid anyone see that I look a little bit different. It's like, mate, being different is arguably that who wants to be the same as everybody else? Like, I am so happy that I'm a little bit weird. I had this conversation with my boyfriend. I don't know if you've ever had this conversation with your partner. How would you know that the other person's been taken over by like a doppelganger? How would you know? Like,
what
would give it away? And without missing a beat, my boyfriend just went, well, you wouldn't be weird. And I went, what? And he went, if you were like normal, that's how I would know you were a doppelganger. And I went, what are you saying? He went, Lauren, you're so fucking weird. And I went, am I? And there's a time where I would have been like, oh, I don't want to be weird. And then I was like, no, I am weird. I am a little bit weird. I'm quirky. And that's absolutely fine. It makes me interesting, makes me fun. I don't want to be the same as every other person. I like that I've got weird little habits and things that used to me. I told you before about collecting coins. I would have put a gun to my head before I admitted to anybody I collect coins. People are going to think I'm nerdy. People are going to think, yeah, it is nerdy. Yeah, it probably isn't cool. I love my coin collection. I love it. Like, all the little things I've always been, oh, well, I can't tell anyone to do that because they'll think I'm weird. I am weird. And it is fine. It is so... I don't want to be too weird. I don't want to be the kind of person who, when you get on a bus, people are like, I'll not sit there. I'll not sit there. But you know what I mean. Good amount of daftness, of weirdness. You get one life, don't you?
Yeah.
So just bloody enjoy it. Like, stop fixating so much on, and I am guilty every now and then of fixating on things, but way better than I was. But on the whole, I'm just like, I just care about being happy. I don't care about fitting in. I don't care, like, if somebody doesn't like me because I do this, okay, well then I'm not the right person for them, and that is fine. Not everybody in life's going to like you. Not everybody in life's going to want to be your friend, but tell you who do want to be your friend, the amazing friends you do have. You don't need 50 people to be hanging off your arm, but if you've got a handful of ride or dies who like you for who you are, perfect.
I think the best thing you can be as a person is polarizing, and that is to either extreme, where the people just don't. I'd rather be loved and hated than just liked, because I'm like, that's crap. I don't want to be disliked. I want to be either loved, or people go, he needs to shut the fuck up because he's annoying. I mean, I remember I was so try hard when I was younger to try and be cool, because I'm the nerdy weird one, like that was me. And I remember I got my hair done nice once. I had like spiky hair when I had hair, and when I had spiky hair, and I used to have a guitar that sat in the corner of my room. Played it maybe just once, had it one lesson. And then I was like, you know what, Mom, I've got my hair's done nice, I'm in a nice shirt, take a picture of us holding the guitar and I'll put it on Facebook, change your profile picture kind of vibe. And years afterwards, I think it was one of my good friends who actually plays guitar, he was like, why have you got the guitar like that? And I went, what do you mean? And he goes, you've put the strap over you like you would put a necklace on.
Yeah.
Rather than put your arm through.
Put your arm through it.
And I use that at the start of every one of my speeches now to show that like this was me trying to be cool. Didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing, and I was like, you need to be, if you're gonna do something and put yourself out there, you've got to do it in an authentic way.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do something, just say you don't fucking know.
I think that thing people can smell like inauthenticity, and I think that's a big thing that I've had with stand-up as well. Once I found my voice, and this is a thing for anyone, I suppose, who's doing stand-up or whatever, like once you find your voice, it's like suddenly you're skipping, like you've been kind of trudging through the mud, and then you're like, oh, I found my voice, everything's so much easier. And I have always just sort of the one thing I've stuck by, even when I have any doubts, even when I think, oh my god, I'm not sure if I can do this, or, oh my god, I'm not sure if I'm good enough, I think no, just be true to yourself, be genuine, write the stand-up you want to write, rather than like, oh, I tell you what, I'll try and write this set for the Book Off Alive at the Apollo in the hope to get on Apollo. No, like absolutely not. I want to write the stand-up I want to write, because I know that is what I'm good at, and I know that's what people enjoy. And I think audience as well aren't stupid. You sit in the crowd and you watch someone and you think, that doesn't feel like them, that doesn't feel real, that feels like they're trying to be somebody else, or they're trying to do edgy material when they're not edgy, or they're trying to do squeaky clean material when you can see they've got a bit of like something about them, or they're trying to do political material but they don't seem to know what they're talking about. And I have really, in my personal life, in my professional life, it's the one thing I try and hold on to, which is just be true to yourself. And the one bit of advice I give to everybody when it comes to writing shows as well, because there's all this pressure obviously to write a certain kind of show, and I'm like, write the show you want to write, that, and then the right audience will find it, you know what I mean? The people will come to it. Just write what you want to write, be who you want to be, but don't be too weird.
Don't be too weird. I love that.
Yeah, be weird enough that people still want to sit next to you on public transport.
Yeah.
or not, because we do like to get a seat to ourselves.
True. Yeah. So I have a question that was sent in from someone. So this is a question about your personal choice, but there's also a correct answer. So this is weird. So where do I start? So who's your favorite comedian?
Good question. So I think, if put a gun to my head, I'd have to say Billy Connolly. I'd have to, because I think we wouldn't have so much of the stand-up that we have without him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've got this memory of watching him. I think I've been very lucky to grow up in a family with a good sense of humour, which I think has also helped me on the path.
Yeah.
Humour was just in our house. I feel sorry for people who grow up in a house where there's no bloody laughter or whatever. And I remember watching Billy Connolly with my dad. And again, it was also that thing of being like, I'm doing something cool with my dad. Like, my dad's letting me watch something that's like his thing. This is so, like, oh my god. And again, not maybe fully understanding everything, but seeing it was making my dad laugh. And you know what it's like when you're a kid, you're like, you want to make your parents laugh, all of this. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. And then me and my dad went to see him on, I think it was the High Horse tour at City Hall. And it was like nothing I've ever seen before. He came, no support. He came out 2 hours, no, and then gone. No encore, no like, oh yeah, I'm back, fake ending. He was like, no, 2 hours straight at the, was there I can't remember if there was an interval. But it was just like a pure masterclass in comedy. And I thought, that is how it's done. Yeah. Brilliant, incredible. And I think just such, I love him. I really, and again, I think maybe it's partly the talent, but also partly that sort of memory it holds with my dad as well.
That's
of
cute.
like,
I like that.
My dad sort of letting me in and being like, oh, hey, go on, like, I know you're a kid, but do you want to watch something that I think is funny?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I do. And just being let into his world, and then about coming full circle and getting to go and see him with him for what was probably, let's face it, the last time. Like, well, I think we knew when the tickets went on sale. We were like, we don't go now.
Yeah, this is farewell.
We're not going to get to see this.
Yeah. Well, apparently that's the wrong answer, actually. So I'm going to ask you the follow-up questions. Who's your favourite Northeast comedian?
Northeast comedian? Oh, I'm going to give two answers. I'm going to give like a... In fact, let me think, because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Because there is a correct answer to this question. It does end, yes.
Is it the person who's asked it, like?
Maybe.
Is it? In that case, probably someone like Matty Reid.
I had more questions. I was like, how far can we get done this question for? He was like, I was like, do you have any questions for Lauren? And he was like, I know, just ask her who her favourite comedian is with different layers to this until she says me.
Matty. I was like, if it's the person who's begged for it to be asked, then it will be Matty Reid.
Well, no, I sent him a message. I was like, do you have any questions?
No,
Lauren,
and he was his name as like, you have to say it's me.
Yeah.
But I've known Matty for so long. I've known Matty like since Matty was I remember I'd been gigging for a couple of months, but I'd not done, a huge amount of gigs. And it must have been at a Red Rose, at the stand. And I'm only a little thing now, but when I first started, I was tiny. I was this teeny tiny little, like, wisp of a comedian. And I remember Matty pulling us to one side. And like I say, I'd not been gigging long, but I'd been gigging, people knew who I was now, sort of thing. I went, can I ask you a question? And I went, yeah. And he went, is there any particular reason you're not moving the mic stand? So when I came on stage, I wasn't moving the mic stand. And it wasn't for any reason. It was just, I didn't know you moved the mic stand, that sort of thing. So obviously the first time I went on stage, I'd not done it. And I was obviously watching other comedians do it, but for whatever reason, it didn't click that I should do it. And he went, you are so small that it's hard to see behind the mic stand. And I was like, oh, I'd never considered that. So then I went on one day and like moved the mic stand. And I was like, oh, this like, like people can see you now. And I just thought, how many gigs would it have taken if Matty hadn't said, why aren't you moving the mic stand before I actually moved the mic stand? Little thing. It's the little my boyfriend tried stand-up. He said it was on his bucket list. He wanted to try it. And you forget, like I sort of laughed, but then I thought, well, it's been 12 years since I did my first gig, but it makes you think of all the things you don't know when you first start. So he was doing his set and he was like this. So he had the microphone, and I was, like that, the mom in Mean Girls. So I'm watching him, and I'm going like, being like the little mama jam, and I'm like, move the mic. And he said he just hadn't, like, he knew you held the mic, but he didn't quite realise you held it.
If you've never had a microphone in your hand, though, you think it's just natural, but it's not.
Exactly. So because he was nervous, obviously he's moving around, but these little microphones just staying here. I told him to set his watch away. And he didn't have a proper watch on him, so I gave him my watch, and then I watched him freeze on stage, and he just went, my girlfriend told me to set my watch and I've forgotten and I don't know how to do it. And I was like, oh, bless.
That's fair.
All the little things that you just don't pick up on. But Matty is a wonderful comedian, despite being from Sunderland.
Yeah, no, we'll not mention that, but everyone's just tuned out now. But if you haven't, actually, just a little plug for him as well. Him and Amy Dolby, who's also been on the show, have now started a podcast together called This Tastes Funny. And it's all about their love for food and stuff, and it's just
very good.
It's just banter after banter after typical Matt Reid humour.
But he's very quick.
Yeah,
I don't like to compliment him too much because it'll go on his head, but he's very, very funny.
Yeah, he gives me like Matt Berry vibes.
Yes,
like that's every time I look at him, I'm just like, I just think, may I approach the bitch? That's what I see when I see him. I'm like, fuck's sake. But I have time for one last question before we run out of time. But my final question is one that I ask every guest now.
Yeah.
And it's entirely up to you how you answer it. There is no right or wrong answer to this. So, do you consider yourself a success?
I think it depends how you measure success. I'm sure to other people I'm not a success, because people will be like, but you've not been on Live at the Apollo and you've not done this. And it's one of the first questions people ask you when you say you're a comedian. They go, oh, well, have you been on TV? Yeah. So for a lot of people, they determine being on TV as a success. But if we're talking about me and do I see myself as a success,
yes.
I would say yes. I do see myself as a success. My success is a set. I do see myself as a success because I have bought a flat with money I earned from comedy.
Brilliant.
That's mad. That's mad. Even like when I used to live in London and people would like, they'd be like, oh, don't quit the day job. And I'd be like, I don't have a day job. So thank you for the compliment. Because if you tell me don't quit the day job, by logic, you tell me don't quit stand-up, which means you think I'm good at stand-up. So thank you, Mr. Troll. Thank you very much. But I've bought a flat with money I made from stand-up. I currently pay the bills for that flat with money I make from stand-up or comedy adjacent things, acting jobs, writing jobs, voiceover jobs. I'm happy, which is the crucially most important thing. I think if you feel a success but you're unhappy, are you really a success? Because I think success is more than just monetary. It's more, am I rich? No. Am I still panicking slightly each month about, God, am I going to be able to pay the bills in 6 months' time, whatever? Yeah, of course. I'm not financially stable by any means, but I know I bought that flat with money I made from stand-up. Not like I say, I pay the bills with money I made from it. I know I'm happy. I know I'm proud. And I think that's a big thing. I look back on my career. If it ended again today, if somebody said, right, you can never be a stand-up again, I would be so proud of what I've achieved. Working class girl from Kenton who has travelled the world doing stand-up, who's performed on stage at the Sydney Opera House, who shared a stage with our idols at 30. I'm 30. I've had the career really that if I had achieved this by 40, I'd be like, wow, amazing. I'm like, I've done it by 30. That is, I'm so proud of that. Like I say, if it ended today, I'd look back on what I've done. I'd be like, babe, you did it. You did it. You took a passion and you took a hobby and you took something you were good at. And despite other people maybe not believing in you at times, despite other people thinking you couldn't do it, or maybe people thinking you shouldn't do it. Oh, does she really want to go pursue a career in that? She's got a brain in her head. Does she not want to do this? I stuck to what I wanted. I trusted myself, even though at times I was telling myself I didn't trust myself. I obviously did trust myself because I did it, and I kept at it, and I worked, and I made it happen. Yeah. And like, are there things that I haven't done that I would have loved to have done? Yeah. But why fixate on that rather than look at the things I have done that I never would have expected that I'd have done? And like I say, and I got a dog also with money I made from stand-up. So, in fact, to be completely honest, the dog was from money from a Mecca Bingo advert. So thank you, Mecca Bingo.
Class.
Because without you, I would not have a jackapoo with separation anxiety. So thank you. But yeah, the way I look at it, to summarise in my Spark Notes answer, I feel very proud of myself. I feel very happy with myself. I enjoy what I do. I'm proud of the things that I've achieved. And I think all in all, that sounds like a success to me.
Yeah. I would agree. I don't tend to comment on people's whether they class as success or not.
And I've only shat myself in public as an adult once, so I think that success.
You talk about that in your show as well, do you?
I think probably.
Yeah.
There's very
there was one,
little.
I know that I watched one where I think you threw up in a cup actually.
Yes, that was a dark day. Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a success to me. Happy, healthy, and looking forward to the future.
Amazing. So where can people find you and what can people expect from you coming forward now?
I am planning a tour. So it's not set in stone yet, but I'm starting to put the work in to actually plan those dates. So I'll be going on tour likely early 2025 kind of time, so like spring 2025. So very excited to that. In the meantime, I'll be popping up around the comedy circuit. So I'm in Stand Glasgow in a few weeks, Stand Edinburgh, the Monkey Barrel in Edinburgh. Where else am I? Stand Newcastle towards Christmas.
Brilliant.
So I've got lots of lovely gigs lined. I do have a website where I'm meant to put them, but I'm not gonna lie, I forget to do that quite regularly. But if at any point you're like, oh, I'd like to see a gig, you just drop me a message and I'll tell you. I'm on Instagram all the time. I will tell you. So I'm doing that. And have I got anything else exciting? I think that's it.
Tom and
I forgot to talk about that. Yeah, so I wrote a radio sitcom with my lovely friend Tom. So we wrote and starred in that, and that is out on, I think it's on BBC Sound. You can listen to all 4 episodes. And I would strongly suggest, because I think maybe the more people who listen to it, the higher the chance of us getting another series. And it was written in the Northeast and it was made in the Northeast. We recorded it in Pilo and we got Julian Clary to be, we only had the budget to have like 2 other actors in it. So we got Louise Young, fantastic comedian, and we managed to get Julian Clary to come to Pilo. Julian Clary came to Pilo.
That makes you a success in your own right.
That is a success. Like, stop the show there. And I think it is so important to have stuff that isn't just, Northeast talent led, because they could have shipped me and Tom off to London to write and record that, you know what I mean? They could have been like, oh, well, you're going to have to come and record it at a studio down here. But it was produced by like Candle and Bell, a Northeast company. It was recorded up here. We wrote it up here. We did all the rehearsals up here. And I think that is so special and so needed to prove that things can be made outside of fucking London.
Exactly.
So yes, I would really appreciate if everybody could listen to that and say nice things about it, because let's get more brilliant stuff made up here. Talent shouldn't feel like it has to leave the Northeast to be heard and to be listened to, and I'm a big advocate of that. I know I left, but I came back, and I've got no intentions. Because I left and I wasn't happy. I was not happy that entire time I lived in London. It was not, being in London was not worth my mental health and my unhappiness. And I came back and I was like, I'd rather have less career opportunities and be happy.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. I also think London's a shithole. I don't like London at all.
It's so busy.
I don't like
There's
it.
So many people.
I think the only other place I'd live other than here is Manchester.
Manchester, good vibe, and Glasgow or Edinburgh, anywhere in Scotland. I think we're quite kindred spirits.
North is just better. Yeah.
Generically north is fine by me.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Lauren, I really appreciate your time today,
and
I really appreciate just what I take from you is the work ethic and the fact that you just kept going and kept pushing. And I also love that inner dialogue that you seem to have where you change new perspective almost on the fly, where you're like, well, hang on, there's no one in this room, I'm going to still do it anyway and still make most of it. Like, I think if more people had that in a dialogue,
I think it's always the thing of being like, okay, right, well, I could stop, but what the fuck happens if, when things go bad, you're like, I could just stop now, but what happens if I stop? I don't know. If I keep going, at least there's a chance it might get better or something else might happen or whatever. Yeah. What's the thing in Finding Nemo when like just keep swimming? Yeah. But I cannot swim, so not that.
Ditto. I can't swim either.
Just keep plodding on. That's
as best you can. 100%.
Exactly. And didn't go near a pool because you cannot swim.
Well, listen, guys, please follow Lauren and check out Tom and Lauren are going oot. Why didn't you go Gannon oot? Did you think it was too
it was Toon Geordie apparently.
Too Geordie.
Didn't think people would. So we did originally write it as Tom and Lauren are Gannon oot, but we had to compromise on the Gannon.
Oot makes more sense. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, go and check out that. Go and check out Lauren's. She's got loads of stand up on YouTube. There's absolutely hours and hours of it. And as always, leave us a 5-star review because it really pushes us to a new audience. And I want more people to hear my lovely voice, even though this has been one of my favourite kind of episodes because I don't have to do much talking. I just let you tell your stories.
Talk for England.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on, Lauren. And I will see you all in the very next episode, guys. Take care.